You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello and welcome to the 42 Cast, your ultimate answer to fandom, geekiness, and everything. As always, I am your host, Nathan, and we have another great episode lined up for you where we're going to talk about Star Trek again with Star Trek Voyager. But before we do that, let's meet our cast for this week. So, starting off, you know that she's here every time we talk about Star Trek. She is my co-host for all of these, and that is my friend Stephanie. How are you doing, Stephanie?
Hello, I'm doing all right.
All right. Well, that's... It's a wonderfully mundane response.
Brain just kind of went like, I'm all right. Because now I'm stuck sitting here like feeling guilty that, oh yeah, I really need to finish watching Prodigy.
Oh no, I didn't mean to bring you down. I mean, but yes, it is a Star Trek thing that you haven't watched, which is rare.
Yep.
Well, the second season.
Yeah, I've seen the first season. I just keep forgetting to get around to the second season. I think it's because it was canceled.
Right.
And then it was kind of revived low key and
it is the weirdest thing because it was renewed, which is why they started working on it. Like originally Paramount Plus renewed it. Then they canceled it after renewing it. And the episodes were already finished. And that was the part that made no sense. It's like, the episodes are finished. Why are you canceling it now? Like, you know, so then Netflix rescued it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of I don't know why. Like anytime a series is renewed and then can't like after episodes have been made, I never understand that because it was the same thing for a series called Snowpiercer that was a live action series. They made the whole fourth season and then TNT canceled it. And it was like a year and a half before AMC actually rescued that one. But it was crazy. It's like the episodes are in the can. The costs have already been like made. Like you'd lose nothing at this point just to air it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Weird.
But, yeah. Anyway, that's one of my soapboxes lately is like the sort of insanity of some of the decisions that networks are making. But anything new and exciting going on for you, Stephanie?
I have an author webpage now that I can give when we give our where you can find us stuff.
Oh, well, that is nice.
So, still not published, but I'm hoping that having the website might help a little in that process because every query I submit always has a, do you have a website? If so, list it here section. And I'm always
it looks more professional because you have a website. So yeah, the impressions make a lot of, you know, it does make some difference, you know, how people perceive you. Yeah.
So fingers crossed that that'll help with the publishing adventures. But yeah, just pretty much that. And working on cosplay for conventions that I'm going to be judging this year. So same old.
Yeah.
Just a year older and spent most of that new age with back pain. Yay!
Oh, I'm sorry. I know those feels very well also. So yes, I am sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
It's good to have you back on the show though.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Sorry,
I was one of the causes of the postponing of this.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, I was the first, like we were postponed at one time because of me. And so, I mean, it's kind of like we have equal responsibility. So it's okay. It's okay. Star Trek Voyager actually isn't going anywhere. So, you know, it's...
It's just like the cursed scheduling.
Ew.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's enough.
Okay. All right. So next up, he is the guy that loves comics. He's still got Thanos on his couch, and that is Eric. How are you doing, Eric?
until I have that cease and desist letter from Marvel. What?
So yeah, what's new and exciting for you, Eric?
Star Trek wise, I read the first issue of I think they're calling it Lore War the other day. So that was fun. Has some Voyager people involved in it, which is always cool. But it's Lore has made himself the full basically dictator of the universe to create it to his own whims. He has data under his control to create the it's it's the comic book that technically takes place before any of Picard. So they're kind of like trying to stay in the same continuity as Picard, and they're actively working with the Star Trek people. So it's really cool. So you have Defiant, which is the Worf crew, and then you have the Star Trek book, which is the Cisco ship.
So it's post next gen but pre Picard, and there's lore in it.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
Laura's in it. It has people from all over. Like at one point they had Shax, the Bajoran from Lower
Yeah,
Decks,
I know who
as the
Shax is.
security officer, which was
Hmm.
awesome.
All right.
I
Well,
was explaining for the audience that might be casuals when it comes to Star Trek. Not everybody knows how awesome Lower Decks is, especially those last couple seasons. Anyway,
so all right. Well, very cool. Very cool.
and then I guess another fun, quick story is I held what is essentially a $15,000 comic book in my hands last week, so that was fun.
Oh, what
Oh yeah,
comic
I
book
haven't
was
been
that?
able to tell you that story yet. It was literally a first printing of it was a first printing of TMNT #1.
Oh, yeah. That
Yeah,
doesn't
no,
surprise me
it
if
was
that's worth that
insane.
much. Yeah.
And it's going to be regraded because the front cover, inside cover is signed by Eastman and Laird,
Mm.
which is insane in the first place. But he had it signed after he got it graded, so Chad, my supervisor, is having it regraded. It's so cool. Just one of those random things that happens when you work at a comic book shop on Tuesdays. It's cool. But no, it's like I said, just holding literally both comic book and New England history in my hands. I had to when I told that story to some of the teenagers that I work with at the full-time job. They're like, "Wait, the turtles are come from New England?" And it's like, "Yeah, they might be New Yorkers as characters, but they're both of their creators were New Englanders, so they are very
Hmm.
much part of our history, just like the Tick."
I knew about the Tick. I did not realize that the turtles were created by people from New England.
Oh yeah, Eastman and Liard were Rhode Islanders at the time.
Oh, okay. No, I don't know much about turtles beyond the animated show from the 80s and 90s. Like, honestly, I mean, I've seen the live action movies too, but like, I don't know much about. I just know that the comics exist, and I know about the whole thing of it's the riff on Daredevil and all that
Yep.
kind of stuff. So, I know
Oh yeah.
some things about the comic, but I've never actually seen a TMNT comic before. So, yeah. But no, that's
Oh,
cool.
they're awesome. The original art style is cool as heck too. You'd
Hmm.
you'd get a kick out of it if you never got the chance to. They have like the like omnibuses that are basically like not hardcover
Hmm.
but floppy like trades. I would recommend checking it out if you're ever interested to see what the original artwork looked like because they've only tackled it in animation like one time for like a half hour worth of footage, but it's cool to see the original. If you've never got the chance to see the original art style, it's completely different than what the cartoons became. It's really cool.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, though, I've got a list of comics I want to read someday that's super long. So, we'll just file that in that list somewhere, and we'll see if I ever get to it. But it's
Oh,
good to have
dude,
you.
you would love. It's always good to be here. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You would love the current Star Trek books, especially as I told you, they're literally like happening a couple years before the Picard stuff. So you get to see where literally everybody, and I mean everybody, from all edges of the Star Trek verse are. Like I said, sadly they're ending pretty soon, but um, they're really good. They're well worth seeking out. I would highly recommend them, especially since we're talking about Voyager, and many Voyager characters are heavily prominent in both of those books.
Hmm. All right.
But it's
Well,
always
yeah.
good to be here.
Well, good. All right. And finally, we have another person who's joined us for quite a few of the Star Trek panels in the past, and that is the always charming Miranda. How are you doing, Miranda?
I'm doing good. I just finished my Voyager rewatch, so I'm ready to go.
Excellent, excellent. Anything new and exciting going on for you since the last week when you were on the show?
I mean, well, not since last week, but since this is the Voyager panel, I did get the a couple three of the Exo 6 Voyager action figures,
Hmm.
which are so unbelievably cool. I grew up watching Star Trek. I always wanted Star Trek dolls, and like having a 1/6 scale, it's like that's Barbie scale. Like that was my doll. So like it was like a dream come true for me. Like, yeah, because I mean, they had like a Star Trek Barbie and Ken when I was a kid, but they were like a generic Barbie and Ken in original series uniforms, and I wanted dolls of all like the '90s Treks, characters. Like, so like these Exo 6 action figures are just they're so amazing. I cried when I opened the package and had these in my hands. So like I wanted these since I was a little girl, and now they exist.
Miranda, where were you when I was playing Barbies and wanted to do Star Trek storylines and all my friends were too confused?
Oh no. See, like, man, we should have known each other as children. We would have had so much fun with our Star Trek doll play.
Yeah, and you two didn't live far away because Stephanie is from Milwaukee, Miranda.
Oh
So
wow,
yeah, you
gosh.
two were not far
So
away from
close.
each other. Yeah. No, well, that's amazing. Because yes, that's the reason I was laughing. Because that's the second time I've heard about somebody wanting to play with Star Trek action figures and having Star Trek Barbie and all of that. Which because Stephanie has told me that before, and Stephanie, in fact, even took it further and did Babylon 5 stories with her Barbies also.
Star Trek Ken was Captain Sheridan.
Nice.
Yeah. I totally get what you're talking about though, Miranda, because these are the toys that I always wanted when I was a kid. And I am so glad, like, if nothing else, I am so glad for the new series Doctor Who because they've created action figures for all my classic Doctor Who stuff. So,
Yeah, they don't still have Ian and
which I
Barbara.
keep them close to me.
I mean, I get it. Yeah, like I've been waiting for them to make the original TARDIS team. Did they ever make it the original TARDIS team?
Ian has finally been released, but no Barbara or Susan.
Ah, see, like that's what I'm still waiting for someday.
Yeah, no, I was really excited when they did Ian. They released Ian and the Sensorites at the same time. It was kind of a
Okay.
weird.
I mean, hey.
But yeah, I actually have for the original TARDIS team, I actually have these statues from Eaglemoss.
Nice.
Yeah. And, like I've got an Ian
Cool.
right here.
Yeah.
Doctor, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah. No, I'm Miranda, totally on the same wavelength with you. I want my original TARDIS team. But anyway, it's good to have you back on the show.
Good to be here.
All right. Well, normally we'd have a 5-minute controversy, but A, I forgot to find one, and B, we probably have enough to talk about with Star Trek Voyager because it lasted 7 seasons, and our Next Gen and our DS9 panels, went for a good length of time. So we're going to table that for next time. But like we said, we're going to talk about Star Trek Voyager, but first we're going to pause for a promo from another fine podcast.
Ever wondered what the universe tastes like?
Or why your best ideas hit at 2 a.m. over a slice of pizza?
Welcome to the Cosmic Pizza Podcast,
Where science, pop culture, and curiosity collide. 4 co-hosts, 4 perspectives, and 0 boring conversations.
We explore everything from sci-fi TV shows to films from each decade.
from conspiracy theories to our favorite foods.
It's deep, it's weird.
And it's seriously fun.
New episodes every month.
So grab a slice.
Kick back, expand your mind with the Cosmic Pizza Podcast.
And we're back. And like we mentioned, we are talking about Star Trek Voyager this time. So before we really dive into it deeply, I am curious because in my memory. So just to sort of go, through, like, I was always a Star Trek fan as far back as I can remember. Original series was in syndication. I used to watch it as a child before Next Gen even aired, and then when Next Gen aired, I started watching that, and I watched through DS9, Voyager. In my mind, of those four shows, Voyager was always the weakest of them. But I know that Eric and Miranda, you were both very excited to jump on in this episode to talk about Voyager. So I'm a little curious, what is it about Voyager? Because I mean, Eric, you haven't asked to be on a Star Trek podcast at all until Voyager. What about Voyager makes it the Star Trek that you really wanted to talk about, Eric?
Wasn't I on one of the Picard seasons?
I don't recall if you were. Now
I
you're making me
think I
curious.
was.
I didn't think so.
I
but
think
let
I
me
was
check.
on one of the. It was either. It had to be either one or two. I swear I was on one of the Picard ones. I could be wrong.
Well, either way, I mean, let's take
I
that.
definitely talked. No, I'm saying like I definitely talked Star Trek at some point on the show, but I can't remember which one of the topics it was. But it was
Yeah.
something related to Star Trek I was on.
Well,
But
I'm
no,
kind of curious because I'm going to explain why I'm asking about this a little, because that was my impression. Because then I had this huge gap because I never really got into Enterprise, and then until the new stuff started coming out on Paramount Plus, I have this like gap of Star Trek. So that thought got very like deeply entrenched within me that like Voyager was somehow the lesser of those four Star Trek series. So again, I'm just kind of curious. So Eric, like what you're feeling, because you didn't bid on original series Next Gen DS9, you bid on this one. So even if you were on a Picard season, like,
Yeah.
so I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are on Voyager, like overall, like why was it one you needed to talk or really wanted to talk about?
Well, Voyager, I don't know. Like I mean, obviously, like as a kid, I grew up on reading Rainbow, and like I knew who LeVar Burton was, and that was like my connection to like Next Gen and the back half of Next Gen, because obviously, like that is, but like Voyager and my story with Voyager is kind of insane because I can tell you exactly, like I have vivid memory of the first time I kind of connected to Voyager, and I can tell you exactly what it was, and the look I'm gonna get for it, Nate, is well worth it for the connection and the story, because then I'll backtrack onto what makes it like I guess for the lesser description of it, my trek, but like
Hold on just one second though. I will say that I did just confirm you have not been on a Picard episode.
okay. When the heck did we talk? We definitely talked Star Trek at some point on your
Well,
show,
we might
but
have like kind
anyways,
of offhand or something. Like it might not have been part
maybe.
of an episode, or if it was we got on a tangent about Star Trek. Maybe,
Oh, maybe.
maybe it was
I
Galaxy
swear
Quest.
that we did.
Maybe it
Oh,
was when we
maybe.
talked
Well,
about
no,
Galaxy.
I feel like it was before Galaxy Quest.
Okay,
But
all right. But
anyways,
anyway,
but
yeah.
no. So in the very in the like I said, this is going to be nuts. So it was either 99 or 2000s when UPN was still UPN.
Mhm.
Voyager had a very specific airtime. And you have no idea where I'm going with this, and I love it that you have no idea where I'm going with this. So
No,
a
because I
very
didn't have a
specific.
UPN station.
Oh no, it's gonna get crazy. Because about a certain other love of mine, fandom of mine. But so a very specific person who was a non-actor at the time had a cameo on a very specific episode of Voyager. Because Seven got stuck having to participate in a battle arena,
Oh,
and who showed up other than Dwayne Johnson, The Rock? But there was a very specific episode of SmackDown back in the day, because UPN had SmackDown on Thursday nights before it ever became Friday Night SmackDown. It was Thursday Night SmackDown, but then Michael Cole and Taz, who were the commentary team at the time, were like, and then stay and watch Star Trek Voyager, where The Rock will be making a guest appearance. And that was my very no no, and that was my very first exposure to any Voyager whatsoever. And then thankfully, after I saw that episode, I was just like, what is this show? I didn't even know there was a Star, because my last exposure to Trek at the time was Next Gen, when Next Gen ended. So I'm like, wait, there was a Trek show going on this entire time and I didn't know, because mind you, it's 99, 2000, and the internet isn't as prominent as it was.
Mhm.
I mean, as it is today. So it was one of those, like very early teenage years. I was just like, wait, what? And then I think UPN thankfully had a full-on marathon where they showed the pilot and then like a couple episodes from a couple different seasons, and I was just like, oh, this is awesome. Because I was just like, oh, this is really cool. So like Harry Kim and Paris, and like it's like this was my bridge crew. This was like, oh, I like these characters. I like that they're flawed. I like that it feels like a found family, and like it's all these people getting basically pulled together because they're stuck on this opposite side of the galaxy, and they basically have to find a way to get home. I hate Neelix. Anyways, I had to throw that in there.
Oh, I have to go back
So
and see
annoying.
where Rachel put Neelix on her tier list. I know it was towards the bottom, but she actually had a few. I was surprised she didn't put Neelix at the absolute bottom. I remembered like saying because she complained about Neelix through 7 seasons of Star Trek Voyager.
But yeah, so thanks to wrestling, I rediscovered Star Trek and was able to, discover one of the best characters in Star Trek, which shouldn't surprise anybody because just like Data, it's another conversation about, like artificial intelligence and
All right,
you
but
know exactly what I'm talking about.
we'll wait
Anyways,
for
but
talking
yeah,
about favorite
that's
characters.
I just love the fact
No, I
that
know,
as
but
soon
that's
as you said the episode was guest starring someone, like you didn't even finish that sentence, and I knew immediately that you were going to that episode.
Yep.
See, the sad thing is because he said he wasn't an actor at the time. And I was like, what in the world? Because my first thoughts are things like guest stars like Sarah Silverman, Andy Dick. I'm trying to think of like all the different guest stars they had, but then I was like, but those are all actors. Like who's he talking about? And then you said The Battle, and I was like, oh god, yeah, I know what you're.
I immediately knew
Because
you were
to
going
me
to
that was like Rachel and I mocked that one. So it's like
I think
starting the
Big Show
legendary
did one
acting
too, right?
career of Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
I think Big Show snuck onto an episode of Voyager too, didn't he? Paul White, Big Show,
I
the
don't know
other
who that is.
wrestler.
No,
I could be
I would
wrong,
have
but
no
I
clue.
Maybe.
All right, no, that's interesting. That is an interesting intro to
Oh yeah.
Voyager through the Rock. All right, I've never heard that one. Um, all right, so Miranda, even though you did talk with us about Next Gen DS9, you were a substitute on both of those, where you were coming in because somebody else had dropped out and you were available. But this is one that you like actively were like, I really want to talk about Voyager. So again, same thing. I'm kind of curious, like why Voyager is such a strong touchstone for you.
Well, I mean, all three '90s tracks were like my shows as a kid. I loved them. I grew up on them. So like those three shows, like that's like core Star Trek to me. I mean, like I saw the original series occasionally when I was a child, and I've watched it since then, and like I've gotten into the new stuff, and like I like some of it even a lot. But like to me, like when I think Star Trek, it's those three. The three '90s series were just like I just love all the characters, and I just, even though, yeah, I do feel like Voyager was very like up and down quality wise, I still I feel like the characters and the premise were so, so, so strong. And like when they got it right, it was so great, and I feel like it only like got it right about like half the time, but like when it did, it was worth it, So I just have affection for those characters just so much still.
All right, cool. And Stephanie, like I know we've talked about everything Star Trek at some point in time or other, but for everyone else, like kind of what are your high level thoughts on Voyager?
Well, for the 90s treks, Next Gen is my favorite. DS9 is the best. Voyager had the best characters with the worst writers.
I don't think you probably saw my post on Facebook, Stephanie. I had the most surreal experience. So Rachel and I have started watching Enterprise now, right? So I'm watching the extras on the discs. And there is an extra on the first disc about, it's an hour long with Brandon Braga and Rick Berman. And it's about the sort of the genesis of Enterprise. And so they're sort of talking about it. Oh my God. Talk about like almost sociopathic like behavior. They have no remorse at all. And everything out of their mouths was like, them congratulating themselves on how great a job they did and how Manny Cotto, who was the guy who did the 4th season of Enterprise, like blew it because he got the show canceled, and
And
like
that was
all
by
this.
far the best season of Enterprise.
I know, and that's the thing, because they were like talking about how the fans were unhinged for saying that, and I was just like, how did this even get on the disc? How did like the producers not say like, all right, we can't run this interview because like these two, like they're like nobody's gonna want to see this, and like just the casual like misogyny of some of the things they were saying, like they referred to T'Pol, they could never refer to her by name. It was the space chick, like like stuff like that, like Brandon Braga called her the ingenue. At least he was a little more like highbrow with it, but like they never referred to her by name. They referred to other characters by name, but not T'Pol. And it was just like, oh my God, it was just like,
Sadly, not surprising behavior for either of those two guys. I have seen much worse interviews with them, actually.
I'm bringing
so.
that up because Braga becomes showrunner of Voyager in season
Yep.
5, taking over for Gary
Yeah.
Taylor. So, yeah, it's yes, it is.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm sorry for derailing you.
No, I mean, that plays right into it. It had some of the greatest characters, but writers who didn't know how to treat them to their full glory. And if anybody has listened to any of the Picard episodes that we did, everybody already will know my absolute admiration of 7 of 9, and how my favorite thing about Picard is, even in the terrible parts of it, 7 was who 7 always had been in my mind. Regardless of how they tried to write her, that was how she always was in my head. So yeah, it suffered drastically from the behind the scenes people, but it had great potential.
Yeah, so my story with Voyager is a little weird. I might have mentioned it a little bit offhand in one of the other Star Trek podcasts, but because we didn't have UPN where I lived, we only had 5 stations, and it was, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, and PBS. That's all we had. So there was no independent station for UPN to move into, like there were in a lot of markets. So what UPN did in those early days when it first established itself, because Star Trek Voyager was its flagship show, from the beginning. I mean, they sort of, first year of UPN, season 1 of Star Trek Voyager, and they started with it. But realizing that there were markets that didn't have an option like that for their first few years, they were willing to make a station of what they called a partial affiliate. And what that meant is it's like, okay, so our local CBS station had been the station that aired They had shown the original series in syndication in the afternoons. They played Next Gen on Friday nights, and they played DS9 on Saturday nights. And, they had aired all of that. And so they made a deal with our local CBS station that it was like, okay, you get Voyager, but you have to play our whole catalog at some point. Well, because they were already playing CBS programming, though, they had to just sort of fit it in whenever they could. Which sometimes was problematic, but they did. They played all the UPN programming. Most of it was like at 3 a.m. on Saturday or whatever, because they were like, nobody cares about your other shows. They only care about Voyager. But Voyager, they usually picked a decent time slot for, but it was, still kind of late or whatever, because it had to be after like the CBS programming was over. But so I did get to see the first 3 seasons, but after season 3, after their 3rd year, UPN said, okay, we're not doing this anymore. You've seen what we have. And so if you're going to continue getting our content, you have to fully become an affiliate with UPN. Of course, CBS station is like, like your stuff doesn't get ratings. Like, we're not going to switch. So they pulled it. And I never got to see seasons 4 through 7 of Voyager until it came out on DVD. Because there was just no way to watch those. I mean, they might have gotten a VHS release, but that was like 1 episode per tape, and I couldn't afford that, kind of, money. So yeah, I didn't see seasons 4 through, and of course, if Scorpion Part 1 is the way that season 3 of Voyager ends, and so like that was like years of agony on my side, wondering how that ends. So.
Related to that, UPN actually was nixed for a while in Milwaukee also when I was growing up. And I ended up not in your same boat, though, because my grandparents lived in a Detroit suburb and they still had UPN. So every week they were recording it for me. And then, like, on a monthly basis while the show was airing, I get a VHS tape in the mail from my grandparents so that I could watch the episodes. And then one of my teachers in 7th and 8th grade, she was also a huge Star Trek fan, and after me and my parents finished watching the tapes, I'd bring them to school for her to watch.
Oh, that's nice. That's
Yeah.
that's a lot like how like Mystery Science Theater used to get around, is that people would tape it and like show it to other people, and then that's why like on the credits at the end of Mystery Science Theater, like they start having like keep circulating the tapes, because not everybody had like an area where they got the comedy channel, and so that's how they would do it. But yeah, so
How strange this must sound to any younger viewers, younger
yes, I
listeners.
know. You mean every episode of everything you wanted to watch wasn't just a click away? Like, like, I mean, you might have to pay money for it, but you can just click on it and, and watch it, right? Yeah.
How
No.
do you just randomly lose a network?
Right.
Not because you decided to stop paying for it.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. But yeah, like, so like my sort of impression of Voyager was always that, it seemed like the writing was really rough on it. Like, and it seemed like they would go, as much as I love time travel and it's like my favorite sci-fi concept, it seemed like they went to the time travel well, like almost every other. It got really bad at some points. In season 1, there's like 3 time travel episodes within 4 episodes and stuff. And it's kind of like, it just seemed like there were like weird decisions like that. And it seemed like there were a lot of like sort of episodes where they didn't understand like how the crew should relate to each other. And again, this is first 3 seasons, right? And it did feel to me like season 3 was getting better. But then that's when I didn't get, any more for a very long time. And so like that sort of became entrenched in me. One of the things that I've discovered though, talking with people and stuff over the years, is that there are a lot of people younger than me and younger than each of you too, I think, that Voyager was their first Star Trek experience and they absolutely love Voyager. I've spoken with quite a few people that tell me like, oh yeah, like Star Trek Voyager was my favorite show growing up, like loved it and all that kind of stuff. And so I do find it interesting, and rewatching it, as I did, the last few years with Rachel, I feel like there is a lot more, and I'm looking at things differently also. But I think we're going to get into that a little more as we get into characters and other stuff. But there's a lot to recommend the show that I don't think that I was looking at as a teenager, watching the show. But let's move on to talking about characters. And I know that there's been a little touched on already for that. And so Stephanie, since I think you've already told us who your favorite character is, why don't you speak a little more about why 7 of 9 is your favorite character?
Oh gosh, I mean, part of it's just because I always loved the Borg. In fact, one of my Barbie storylines,
Was there a
I may
Barbie
have
Borg?
shared this on a different Star Trek podcast before. But yeah, I did have a Barbie plot line that involved Barbie being a drone who was intentionally left alone on a planet in looking like human form, intentionally to be rescued and seduce Captain Ken and then assimilate the whole crew. So when suddenly we did have a human looking Borg character,
Oh, I see. This predates 7.
yes,
Oh, okay.
I was just very happy to have my my gorgeous, super smart Borg woman who wasn't trying to seduce the captain, but it was still...
There's fanfic for it.
Oh yeah, there is. I definitely view that as a more maternal relationship, but yeah, there's a... Anyway,
Well, one of the things that I've learned since then is like they hated each other. Like they did
Yeah.
not get along on set at all. Like, but I don't think that comes through in the performances.
No.
I think that they work very well together, even though apparently like there was a lot of like jealousy and like, like, oh, you're stealing all the best stuff and that kind of, I'm the person in charge, it's my show, like that's that kind of stuff going on. So
I mean, I kind of get where Kate Mulgrew was coming from. But I am glad that the two of them have apparently
Mhm.
made amends in years since. Because I definitely think that Seven and Janeway had a phenomenal relationship, especially in a sci-fi show with two women in the 90s. That was just a really, although was it the 2000s by the time Seven came in? I don't remember.
No, it was still the 90s.
Okay. But yeah, it was just a great relationship between two women characters, and so it's a little heartbreaking that there was that rivalry between the actresses, but it seems that's settled now. But yeah, Seven basically just was the character that I really clung to. I was always kind of meh on Kess, so I was greatly I just was really happy with Seven replacing her, basically. And yeah, she was like the character, like Data in Next Gen was my favorite. Here it became Seven, and I could relate to her a little bit more than I could to Data. But those are both like two of my absolute favorite Star Trek characters. And that definitely contributed to my bias of Picard, where I held even some of the shakier parts of it with higher regard than many, for the sheer fact that it merged like two of my absolute favorite characters, and replaced my favorite captain with my favorite character becoming a captain. I want Captain Seven, damn it, give me Legacy.
I don't think that Paramount knows what they're doing. Like, it's almost, well, to be fair, they are going through a takeover right now. So
Yeah.
I mean, like, we'll know probably in a year or so. They'll probably have some plans for what they're going to do with Star Trek, from here on out. And hopefully that'll involve legacy. The thing that upsets me so much, I know I mentioned it to you before, Stephanie, I'm not sure if we were recording at the time, is they were working on 4Ks for original series Next Gen, DS9, and Voyager just before the takeover, and because of the takeover all of that stuff's been put on hold, and I'm worried that the new management won't see the value in physical media because a lot of people don't now, and they'll be like, why are we spending money on this, and kill it. But oh god, I would love to, because DS9 and Voyager are just on DVD right now. They're not even on Blu-ray, and so I was like, 4K, like I was just hoping for Blu-ray releases for those someday. Like I'm like, give me the 4K.
No, I'm right there with you. I'd be happy with Blu-ray, but yeah, come on.
Yeah, because it was a noticeable watching through with Rachel going from Next Gen to DS9, and like the quality drop off in the video is very noticeable. Because yeah, I mean, like it's like, oh, like Next Gen looks really good even though it's like an older show, and then sort of like, oh, DS9, ooh, very grainy, like low res, like not great.
But I mean, Babylon 5 managed to get a Blu-ray release, so
yeah, different management though.
Yeah, but that seemed even less likely to happen.
I know. Star Trek, my God, like, it's like, you'll make money. Like, I get that DS9 and Voyager have never been as popular as the original Next Gen, but especially in, like, the years since, people have gone back. Like, they have more fans now of those shows than they did then. In the 90s. And I've been shocked by the number of people, like, for instance, with DS9 who have been like, oh yeah, DS9's the greatest Star Trek. And I was like, where were you in the 90s when everybody was like, DS9 sucks? And I was like the one person who liked it.
I mean, to be fair, I was only saying it sucked back then because I was such a Babylon 5 fan.
Well, yeah, I would have told you Babylon 5 was better then too, but I still love DS9. Anyway. But yeah, anything to so how I'm gonna do this is when somebody brings up a character, well, I'll talk about that character too. So Miranda, anything to say about 7 of 9?
Well, I think like Seven of Nine like was like a great idea for a character that just often suffered in execution because they were more concerned with like, oh look, let's play with our Borg Barbie rather than making her a fully well-rounded character most of the time. I mean, I do feel like eventually, like in like season 6 and 7, they really delved into her like, you know, personal struggles and psyche a lot more. But I mean, they, you know, the whole presentation of like, look, it's our sexy Borg babe really hurt, you know, her character development and kind of inhibited my ability to like even like her at first. I did come to like her eventually, but it took a while because, you know, the fact that like it's like, oh, you can have another female character, but we're going to put her in a cat suit. So all you women in the audience know that we met her in charge and we're only going to let you have female characters as long as they're, you know, there for our eye candy. And it was like just a constant slap in the face to like all the women in the audience, especially for Star Trek, who like, you know, it was back in the day, it was women who built up, you know, the original like fanzines and conventions and all and letter writing campaigns that got Star Trek to stay on the air back in the 60s. So like, you know, I mean, like that was a particular, and I knew all this fandom history even as a kid because I was like a major Trekkie. So just like that particularly to me always rankled. However, as time has gone on, I've come to appreciate like Seven as a character, apart from like how she was introduced, how she was portrayed, and how she was talked about and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do find it. So Jerry Taylor's quote when asked about, you know, how why she felt so strongly about getting Deanna Troi out of the, the casual wear that she used to wear on the, on the show and into a uniform, and why she presented Seven as, the way that she did. And she was basically like, well, Seven isn't a member of Starfleet. And like, it was like, okay, but that doesn't really address the issue. It's like, okay, she doesn't have to wear a uniform, but I mean, the thing is, the doctor also designed her outfit because I mean, that's the thing. Like,
I know, once again, oh my God, what the heck, no. But like, also, I mean, the thing about like Seven though, like, I mean, Jerry Taylor was just like conciliating because it was like Berman and Braga and everybody, like they were very clear. No, we're bringing her on to be like the sex bomb, and we're gonna promote the hell out of this because we want to get, that male 18 to 34 audience, like, which like, it's like, it's Star Trek, like it has its audience, like it was doing okay. It wasn't like failing. It wasn't like as highly rated as like Next Gen or whatever, but like it was okay. But like Berman and Braga are major misogynists, quite honestly. I mean, like, and like they were pretty, just the way they conceived of her, the way they talked about her, it was always like meant to be their little Barbie, like, ooh, it's our sex bomb, sex symbol kind of character. And I don't think they really thought about her more deeply than that, and for quite a while. I mean, it just, yeah. There was no reason she shouldn't have been in uniform, especially on Voyager of all shows, because like half of the crew was not Starfleet. Half of them were Maquis. They gave them uniforms. Seven is also performing like crew duties and not being Starfleet. So like you could totally give her a uniform too. And she looks so much better in it. Rachel and I talked about that
as well, that it's just as legit as the Maquis with Starfleet uniforms. Yeah, no, I agree with you there. But yeah, so Stephanie, like, so did you mind that she was, sort of like dolled up and put in a cat suit and all of that?
I mean, I interpreted it, well, there's how I interpreted the character versus how I knew she was being portrayed. And honestly, I don't know how the two concepts are kind of like competing with each other, but in my mind it always worked. And like I said, the way that she got presented in Picard was how I always envisioned her coming out, where she was just this very strong, self-assured, very knowledgeable character. And I mean, maybe the cat suit didn't bother me as much because Jerry Ryan as Seven of Nine was also my definite, for sure, very first crush on a woman that helped me realize that I was bisexual. So, I might have a little biasy there.
She's a very pretty woman.
She is.
I'll give you that.
Even when she was on Matlock for like one episode.
She was on a show in the 90s that I used to watch called Time Track. She was in an episode of that too.
Even though those two, the way that she was presented versus the way that I interpreted her were definitely competing, and I was fully aware of and still find the problems with her character that Miranda was pointing out. My own personal headcanon just overrode all of it, just like my own personal headcanon. Chakotay is nothing to her. Because
we're gonna go there. We're gonna go there.
Worst romance.
We don't know what to do with Chakotay. Let's make him Seven's
Chakotay
boyfriend.
existed.
How to have negative chemistry and when he
Right.
not even no chemistry, negative chemistry.
I've got a better story about that because there have been interviews where people were asked about that. I've got a scoop that because I don't think many people have seen this interview. Okay, so I will say this. So I mean, this is secondhand, of course, but it's for me because I knew this was a talking point, so I talked to Rachel about it. Rachel says she didn't mind the cat suit because she felt like because Seven is all about efficiency, like that having clothes that are like, not like not like sort of like getting in the way and kind of like flopping around and stuff like actually makes sense. Her only issue was with the heels. Because she was she shouldn't have heels. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense because that makes it harder to walk. And that's not efficient. So that was her only issue with it. But she thought that the catsuit actually, like, kind of made sense for the character and didn't think that it was a problem.
Catsuits are actually the most inefficient because Jerry Ryan, they actually had to, like, sew her in and then cut her out like every time she had to like pee or whatever. Like she couldn't even like pee when they were filming this. It is the most like inefficient garment they could have possibly put her in. No board would ever wear that.
Yes, I understand that. I mean, I'm assuming when the 24th century they have a way of her getting out without having to have somebody like rip the clothing apart. But yeah.
I will admit that as a cosplayer who has done a few costumes in cat suits, an actual cat suit is actually pretty efficient. But those are ones that were designed
like
for
a
me
corset
in and out of on my own, even with a corset. But the way that Sevens were designed were definitely not functional cat suits.
Right, you can see the ribbing and everything from like the corsetry and everything. And my wife Beth, she laughed at one point because there's a thing where like it's one of the times when Seven is like unconscious on the floor or whatever. Her boobs are like perfectly still like shaped, and she's like, "That's not how this works." But anyway, well, see, I didn't need a 5-minute controversy. Eric, what do you think about Seven?
Seven's great. Seven as a character, especially like I feel like when she was first added to the show, it kind of like felt forced, but then like the better writers in the show finally clicked for them for like the stuff that they could really like start playing with, except for the Chakotay romance, which no, stop it. She had more chemistry with the holographic doctor. Anyways, sorry.
I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that.
No, I know. I'm just ranting at this point when it comes to these. When you force romances on shows, it's the direct opposite of B'Elanna and Tom. Direct opposite, because those two instant chemistry. Anyways, but no, Seven as a character, like especially the last couple seasons was really when they found the footing with her, because obviously that first season or two, it was, let's write her as if like the male gaze, and it's like, no, how about we write her as an actual character, please? You could tell. I can't remember if it was before or after Jerry Ryan had just either come from the Boston, it was Boston something, the name of the show.
I think she did Boston Legal right after Voyager.
Okay, it was right after Voyager. I couldn't remember if it was before or after, because I know she did the one about the school too, right? I think that was like right before Voyager.
Oh, it was Boston Public. That's what it was. It was the school
Yeah,
one. She
Boston
was a
Public.
teacher.
Okay,
That
thank
was
you.
it.
Yep.
That was it.
Okay, that was right after then. For whatever
Yeah.
reason, my brain wanted to say it was before. Okay, but no, obviously different ways of her to like play characters, but you could kind of tell like like especially that last season or two with everything they were dealing with, and then going into an actual full-fledged drama versus science fiction and drama, she kind of like you could see her finally relax a little bit and kind of like flex her acting muscles more and more, especially in the back half of the show. And then when she moved on to, um, like I said, the Boston Public. Why did my brain freeze again? My brain always freezes on the name of that show. But no, Jerry Ryan as an actress is fantastic, and it took a while for them to really find Seven's footing on the show properly. But when they found it, especially like on episodes where it was just, Seven and the Doctor have to save the day, or Seven and say like Seven and one other crew member have to save the day, those were the stronger written episodes versus, it's Seven is almost a damsel in distress, when she was first introduced. And it's like, can we not do that? Or like, like the analog for like abuse and all that
I mean, they
nonsense.
devoted a whole episode to who's she gonna date, and then she decided she doesn't need to date anybody. Like, but there was a whole
Hate it. I
episode
hate it
devoted to
so
that.
much.
So bad.
Like I said, it took
Literally.
until the back half of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she's gonna analyze everybody. It's like, and that's what's like, and that was even like one of the things that I brought up, when I first saw it with Chakotay thing. Is like why she have already evaluated Chakotay as part of that other episode and would have said that he wasn't a worthy partner. So why are we?
Exactly. Like, oh, geez.
It was just such a terrible, terrible shipping. And Nathan, that story that you have, if that's true, it just makes it even worse.
It's
And
what
it seems
Robert.
like
It's what
true.
Robert Beltran says, but we're gonna get there. Um.
I do
Um.
real quick, sorry. On a note for Seven, my
uh,
favorite thing with Seven is the same thing as like with Balana and even Janeway, where like they got to go full Ellen Ripley. The
mm.
second you got the moments where they had enough of the crap and they were just like, I'm handling this. Get out of my way. Those are the best moments for all three of those ladies in that crew. The second they just got sick of everybody else's crap and went, I'm handling this myself. Best moments for all three of those characters.
For me, my favorite moment from Seven is in the Captain Proton holodeck thing where she just goes up to the robot and says, I am Borg, and just rips her hand into it and pulls out all the circuitry. That's my favorite Seven moment.
So
That's
good.
Like, hands
fantastic.
So
down.
good.
Um, so yeah, one of the things that hasn't been talked about yet, and for me is because even though I love Seven, and I love like what they did with her as a character, and I really like the sort of examination of someone who was assimilated at a young age, and sort of discovering her humanity and all of that sort of stuff. I will say this, and this is something that's come out in interviews and whatnot. Um, I do feel like it was detrimental in some ways to the overall cast dynamic. Like Tim Russ has talked about the fact that because Seven was so similar to Tuvok, like it felt like his role in the show was diminished. And I think and I was looking for that because I had seen that interview before this latest watch of Voyager. And I agree. I feel like Tuvok's like role on the show, like he got a lot less to do once Seven showed up because, like Seven was sort of taking a niche that Tuvok had had. And one of the things that I really miss, because one of the things that I really noticed this time, and Rachel and I talked about it, was that um, there used to be these wonderful scenes with B'Elanna and Janeway where they would talk about science and engineering, and it was kind of like one of those things, because that's one of the things that like women that I've talked to that grew up watching Voyager have talked to me about how Janeway and having a scientist captain, a woman scientist captain, like Dr. Erin McDonald, who's been on the show, who's now the science advisor for Star Trek. She's their physics advisor. In fact, they actually put her in animated form in Prodigy. But yeah, she's been on the show and she talked about how Janeway was such a big influence on her, and going into science because she idolized Janeway. And so it's nice to have these two women, right? You got B'Elanna and you got Janeway, and they'll talk about science stuff. Well, once Seven shows up, I don't think there's a single like B'Elanna Janeway scene ever again. Like, they'll be they'll be in groups or whatever together, but there's never like a one-on-one in the ready room with B'Elanna and Janeway. Like, that's just done. So I do feel like she does influence the some of the dynamics of the show somewhat negatively, because they did want to, put Seven and Janeway in a lot of like those situations and have them talk about stuff, but usually it was more about Seven becoming a person and like all that kind of stuff, and it was less about the two just discussing purely science or stuff like that, although that does happen from time to time. But I do miss the B'Elanna Janeway interaction, because I kind of liked that, and I liked how it was kind of like somewhat antagonistic, but they kind of respected each other, and I kind of liked that whole sort of dynamic, and it kind of goes by the wayside after Seven shows up.
I don't think I ever noticed, at least not consciously, the decline with the Janeway and B'Elanna stuff until you just now mentioned it. But I have been sitting here thinking that B'Elanna and Seven didn't get enough one-on-one time, because I think they were...
Well, they literally hated each other. Like, that was something that they made sure to make front and center, that like those could not stand each other.
But it was a great dynamic the way they played it too. It wasn't your typical female rivalry. So it's just so infuriating that this show did have very good women characters, but they were always thrown into these situations by Berman and crew. But I have seen a recent trend, though, popping up in a lot of the Star Trek fandom of lately making it so that Seven and Tuvok were like besties, because they would just hang out with each other in complete silence. But Seven's like, the doctor says it's good if I like interact with people. Do you mind if I sit with you? And they just become absolute best friends because they just always sit together doing absolutely no interacting with each other.
Yeah, Rachel always wanted more with Seven and Tuvok. I mean, it's kind of sad because, there was the whole Year of Hell two-parter that, we have this horrible timeline and then it gets undone. But one of like the really nice things about that is like Tuvok becomes blind and like Seven is the person that like guides him through the ship. And like Rachel absolutely loved that dynamic and was so upset that they reset the timeline at the end. She thought that was like the new like reality, that they were going to like go forward like that. And she was like, oh, this is so interesting. Like, I can't wait to see where this goes. And it's just like, reset button, But yeah.
And I think that's a big part, like that episode or that dynamic in that two-parter was definitely where I think this besties thing originally came and why it works so well.
So Eric, I think you also telegraphed who your favorite character is, but why don't you tell us who your favorite character is?
Please state the nature of your medical emergency.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't love Robert Picardo? I mean, that man is such an awesome actor in general. But really? But
it's
no,
coming from inside the house.
The character of the Doctor is just, once again, just similar to Data, where like, like when the writers were on top of it, they were able to full on explore, what does humanity mean from the aspect of artificial intelligence? And, like when it wasn't heavy handed, especially towards the back half of the show, even though there are episodes where, I mean, it's actually, in fairness, it's probably the least annoying that we ever saw Andy Dick when he was around as a character.
I'm so glad that you agree with me about Andy Dick, because I do not think he's funny. But
responsible for Phil Hartman's death. What? Anyways.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, geez.
It's the truth.
Okay,
it's the
I
truth.
Phil Hartman was much better of a individual.
What?
I liked Phil Hartman a lot more than I liked.
Oh, no, I know. I know that, but I don't know how Andy Dick killed it. I mean, they were both on news radio.
I know. point was I was agreeing with Eric here, and it just failed.
It's a whole nother can of worms. Just look it up if you get the time, Nate.
Okay.
You will get angry, but
Okay.
it involves John Lovitz almost murdering the man in front of a bunch of people. It's amazing. Anyways, yeah, John Lovitz of all people going after. But no, like I said, it's the least annoying Andy Dick has ever been because he was basically pretty much even in character pretty much having the other actor being like, no, knock it off, listen to exactly what I'm saying and go exactly by what I'm saying. When somebody can ground Andy Dick, who was notoriously one of the most like annoying actors to ever be around, like directors hated that man. But no, it's like it speaks levels to Robert Picardo as an actor, where like if he can bounce off Andy Dick and not like basically not have to murder him or have him be like, no, stop it. Even though that is very much what was happening in character, where he's like, you're a new artificial intelligence, I need you to calm down and listen to me because I've been around and doing this longer than you. But it's Robert Picardo and the Doctor. I mean, he's my favorite character on the show easily, and he was always had some of the stronger storylines, especially once again towards the back half of the show, had the stronger stories because they saw, like they saw where the fans were responding, similar to, a character like Data, where it's just like, oh, everybody loves this character, let's write for them. Sadly, that meant like certain other characters, just like Tuvok, who Tuvok was freaking awesome, but Seven, the Doctor, like even B'Elanna got less to do because like the more popular characters were the ones that the writers were having sadly a lot more fun writing for, so everybody else gets shunted to the background. So it's a double-edged sword where it's like, yes, we love this character, but you can also see the flaws where it's like, okay, cool, the Doctor got a lot more spotlight than any of these other characters who suddenly get thrown to the background because, hey, I want to write a cool artificial intelligence story and explore that. And it's like, okay, cool, I'll be in the background, can see me wave at you for 5 minutes of the episode.
Yeah. No, I will say though, because you compared him to Data, one of the things that frustrates me so much about Voyager in the last season is they never bring up Data as precedent for the whole like artificial life thing, and it's just like, you've already litigated this. The only question should be, does the fact that he is a photonic being controlled by the computer make him significantly different from Data? That should be the only like thing that should be discussed at all, because you've already argued for artificial life with Data. And it's like they treat it like it's a whole new like can of worms, and I'm like, it's not. It's basically the same question, and the only thing is that he is now like something that's controlled by a computer rather than being like, an independent being of himself. And so like that should be the only discussion, but they don't even talk about that. So yeah, that got me so mad because it was like, and Braga was around in Next Gen, so it's like, how did you not like?
Oh, dude, no, because they even do some of that in the 3 seasons of Picard, where it's like it feels like the Voyager characters, you hear references to it, and it's like, okay, this was stuff that was already handled, so why are we retreading? Like there's certain bits and pieces of the storyline that pop up for 7, and it's like, why are we retreading? This is stuff that should have already been handled years ago. What are we doing?
All right. Well, my issue with New Trek, New Trek I give kind of, because it's been so long, and a lot of the people working on New Trek, I feel like they know Star Trek because they've read Wikipedia articles but haven't actually seen the episode. So they know things about Star Trek, but they don't know the context. And some of the writers have even said, oh yeah, I've never watched like any of the previous Star Treks, So like, I think that's the problem, is it's like they might have read about Star Trek, but if you're not actually watching the episodes, you lose context. And so I think that's kind of the problem with some of those things, where it doesn't feel like things like work. Is it's like, but they do reference things that shows that they do have some Star Trek knowledge. I think that's part of the problem.
Unless it's Lower Decks, so especially the back 2 seasons where it's like, okay, you watched too much Star Trek.
Well, yeah, no, I mean Lower Decks. I mean, it's clear that they know their Star Trek very well. I mean, like, everything else aside, they definitely know their Star Trek very well. The writers for that series. But Miranda, what are your thoughts on the Doctor?
Well, unfortunately, the Doctor is my least favorite Voyager character, and the only regular character in the 390s treks that I truly just do not like at all.
I promise everybody, Miranda actually loves a lot about Voyager.
I do, I just because for me, all of the Doctor's storylines retread so much of Data's story. Like we already did that with Data. Like we don't need to have another artificial life form. Like we've established legal precedent. We've explored all the psychological things and stuff. Like Data already was there and did it better too. And I just like and the like I like and like I started out liking the Doctor when the show started. Like I thought he was fine, but just as time went on and they focused more and more and more time on him, and it was always about like his fantasies and his wanting everyone to think him important and better than everyone. He's always making all these mean little jibes at everybody and putting everyone down and being so rude. And it's like, I mean, people can think that's cute, but just like for me, it got grating even on the original watching back in the day. And every single rewatch, I'm just like, like every time I watch his episodes, because it's like, it's just like he's in love with a younger blonde woman he's supposed to be mentoring, and oh dear, how sad for him. Or it's like he wants to be in command even though he has absolutely no command experience. He's not even a real officer. He's never been to the academy, and yet he's like whining that like, well, why does Harry get to be a command? I should be command. Like Harry is a real officer. He's been to the academy. He has more command experience than you. And so much of the time I felt like all of his storylines were kind of just these fluffy things that we were just spending so much time on, like him fantasizing about all the women on the ship wanting him, and him, fantasizing about being the big hero. And it's like, and we got all of this rather than actual character development for all of the other characters. Like so many like major developments for all these other characters are either totally shunted to the side and like totally gotten rid of, or they happen off screen and we hear about it in passing, or we don't hear about it at all and we wonder like, and I just felt like there was way, way, way too much focus on the Doctor, and there was not like any like valuable content there just in like pretty much any of his episodes. I mean, like there's one or two of his that I do really like. I mean, the one that's the critique of the U.S. healthcare system is even more relevant now than it was then. And I'm like, yeah, that one, I'm with him 100% there. That was something of substance, that had something to say. But most of it, they spend so much time of him just like whining and being mean to people. And I just like, I've tried to like him, but I just like, I can't anymore, no matter how hard I try, unfortunately.
Yeah, Beth and I thought it was, or I'm sorry, Rachel and I thought it was ridiculous that they never cross-trained anybody on that ship. Because it's like, Tom, you get like, you took one class in like, medical, so like you're it. But it's like, I'm like, what if like Tom's on a mission or needs to pilot the ship and the Doctor's down? Like, shouldn't you like train other people do
Well,
this?
Tom being a medic was like the weirdest. It's like he's your main pilot. Like that's
Right.
his main important job. There's literally no other science officer on that entire ship that has more than like one medical course. Like there's not a single science officer who has more medical knowledge than a pilot. Like, come on. Like that's so stupid.
I mean, I get that being a doctor and being a biologist is different, but at least that's a basis. Like, I know they had
Right?
biologists on the ship, so it's kind of like you can
Yeah.
teach a biologist the things they need to know to also be a doctor.
Right?
So, I mean, it's
Exactly. Like yeah, that just didn't make sense. I mean, not that I don't love Tom being a medic. I think he's adorable and really good at it. But like from like a purely logical like standpoint, like Ensign Wildman or somebody like should have been like the
Mhm.
medic. You know what I mean? Because she was a great character that I loved, and I think that we should
Ensign
have seen a
Wildman,
lot
who
more.
I'm pretty sure dies sometime after season 4, but we never mention it because, like, Naomi's running around. We never see Mom after season
Yeah,
4.
well, they never mentioned her dying, so in my
I
head,
know.
she cannot have died because that would have been a very, very big plot point. But she like okay, I just rewatched and I've been tracking all the characters that recur. She does have like one last appearance in like season 6, but it's a flashback, but like she never like officially died. So like I don't know why they didn't have her in episodes, especially when Naomi was there. Because yeah, so many times we just see like this little kid running around the ship like without her mom anywhere in sight. And it's like I get she's kind of the ship's kid. Everybody kind of looks out for her, but like I do think like she's a child. Like her mom should be like close by, like in most like situations in the ship, you know? I always thought that was a little
Yeah,
weird.
Rachel and I sort of created a fanon about how like Naomi's repressed her mother's death, and like Seven and Neelix are like raising her, and like that's why she's always with one or the other of them, and it's kind of like because they feel guilty about somehow like how she died was something where they were there, and they're like, oh, we gotta take care of Naomi, and yeah, I mean, we're joking, right? Like we know that's not like what the show intended, but like it was just kind of like because she doesn't show up and it just feels so weird that the
It
mom
does.
isn't there at all.
It does. It does.
With some bad Leola root.
But yeah, Stephanie, what do you think about the Doctor?
I'd say I'm kind of in the middle ground of the two of them. There are times where I absolutely love the Doctor, times where I think he's insufferable. Robert Picardo definitely is a huge plus of the character.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any other actor could have towed the line between insufferable ass and lovable innocent as well as he did. But there were definitely a lot of interactions with him and Cass and him and Seven that were a little uncomfortable. But overall, he was a fun and interesting character, whether you loved him or hated him, depending on the episode. So I don't really feel like I have much to add that Eric and Miranda didn't already go over with him.
Okay.
But I definitely think that the actor, and that kind of goes back to my original analysis of this show had great characters but poor writing because the characters were just so perfectly cast. And actually that was something I thought of while we've been on this whole other character discussion too, was the way Jerry Ryan portrayed Seven is probably part of why I filled in the gaps of her character, not based off of what we were given, just how Jerry Ryan herself presented her. Same goes for Robert Picardo and just everybody on this show. This is one of the few Next Gen and Voyager are like the only two Star Treks where I actually know the majority of the crew's actors' names. Well, I guess TOS as well. But with the rest of them, I'm very often completely set to whoever the character was versus their actor's name. And yeah, the casting was just so great with them that the characters really did get sold by the actors.
Come on, you can't name the cast for Section 31?
I have tried to block that whole thing from my memory.
I was waiting to see what your reaction would be to
that. I hope it did not disappoint.
Everyone, Stephanie deserves all the kudos. She watched that horrible movie for me, so...
It was like one of the few Star Trek things I didn't want to watch. It wasn't that I just kept forgetting. It was I didn't want to watch it.
Oh, to be fair, when I asked you to watch it, I hadn't seen it yet either. And yeah, I would have forgiven you if you didn't watch it, because after I watched it, I was like, oh, that's actually horrible. Like that's not just bad, that's ultra bad.
You're both braver than me. I haven't been able to bring myself.
I went in with such low expectations, and I was still disappointed.
It undercut the low expectations, yeah. All right, so I'll say this about the Doctor. So first of all, I absolutely loved him when I watched the show originally as a teen. I always liked characters with healthy egos. I loved the whole, because that's the thing, right? Because, we had Spock, we had Data. For me, Spock was the character that I've like probably connected with the most of all of Star Trek. So like Spock, from the time I was a little kid, always loved Spock. I thought Spock was the greatest. And I feel like the Doctor was different from either of those two characters, because even though Spock had a sort of arrogance about him, also it was kind of an understated, arrogance, and it usually only came out around McCoy. Right, like that's when it usually like because they didn't get along very well with each other. Um, but I found the Doctor funny. I thought that, like some of the things, like the fact that it's just he's so smart, but he's stuck in that room and they can turn him off. Like that whole side of it, like for him, like the greatest thing was them giving him like the control over his own like system to be turned off or not. Because and then they would leave him on sometimes when he's just like, I have nothing to do, and they just left me on, and I can't do anything. Like, I loved all of that. I thought that that was an interesting, like, new thing to do, like, with that sort of outsider character. Um, this time watching it through, I'll say this. I never appreciated just how good of a performer Robert Picardo is. And this time through, it was like, oh my God, like this guy, we can go to all levels of acting. He can sing, like he is like just like super duper talented, performer all the way around. And so like I definitely felt like, that brought a whole, he was able to bring so much more to the Doctor because the Doctor had so many interests, also, which made him a more interesting character because, he did want to learn about not just, he knew all the stuff about medicine, but he wanted to, learn how to sing. He wanted to learn acting. He wanted to learn what it was like to have a family. Like the one where he has the simulated family, like that is heartbreaking, and Balana makes it real, and so like it's suddenly like he has to deal with like real dynamics and stuff.
Yeah, I like that was so good, but the thing about like we never hear about it ever
I
again. Like it
know.
was just a one time and done. Like that would have been so cool to develop that, and they didn't, like it's just one of those like
Yeah, Berman and Braga.
yeah.
I'm gonna say
Yeah.
this. So like Berman and Braga have gone on the record that they didn't like DS9. Ira Bear basically got control of DS9 and ran it his way out of their control. And one of the things
Good.
that Berman has always said is Gene didn't like story arcs, and so I had to follow Gene's legacy, and I don't like story arcs. That's one of the things that he said in interviews because like Gene didn't like the idea that you had to make people watch all the episodes to understand them, and so he was like, and I, as Gene's successor, had to bear the torch and follow his wishes, and so I never cared for any of that. And that was the problem. Like Voyager would introduce all sorts of neat stuff that then they would like ignore forever after that. And because yes, I agree with you completely, Miranda. Like the idea that the Doctor has this family in the holodeck that he goes home to and whatever, they should have kept up with that. Like showed us what happens after that, and like had that be like a thing that actually helps him to develop his social interactions with the crew because he has this family that he's, developing, a relationship with, and that would have taken out so it's kind of funny to me. I know that you and Stephanie have kind of mentioned some skeezy stuff with Seven. I saw that a little more this time because I was looking for it because I've heard people talk about it. Beth watched all this stuff. So as I was getting the DVD sets, I showed Beth Next Gen, I showed her DS9, and then we watched Voyager pretty much together because we got through the episodes I had already seen together and watched it through. And so I'd never seen any of the 7 of 9 episodes until I got those DVDs. Beth calls them the OTP, like the Doctor and Seven. Like she's completely convinced that they were made for each other. And when we were first watching it, I thought so too. I was like, oh, these two are like a perfect match for each other. Like, like and it was kind of sad. I did like the fact that they didn't get together because it was, sort of like okay, it seems to be that the show is pushing them together, but then they don't actually get together. Did I think he was a better match for her than Chakotay? Yes.
I think that's about the only way that I accept that pairing is that, yes, it was substantially better than Chakotay. Anybody was better than
Anybody.
Chakotay.
But you've already heard my spiel about how I thought that the Kira and Odo thing was forced, and that I liked how they originally handled it with Odo realized Kira was never going to have feelings for him, and he decided to drop it. And I was like, wow, a mature way of handling like unrequited feelings. Like you never see that in anything. And then it was like the writers were like, no, Odo, you deserve a prize for everything that you've gone through. So suddenly Kira has feelings for you, and it's just like that didn't feel right. Like it felt like so weird and out of left field, and I never liked that. But yeah, usually that's the way things go, though. Writers hate like unrequited feelings, and eventually it's going to like, it's gonna, happen. And so I was actually surprised that is one of the things that of Voyager that came out is it's like, yeah, the Doctor has these unrequited feelings for Seven, and it just never like I don't think she's ever aware of them, which I think is like which is so great because it's just like, he keeps thinking he's gonna say something and he never does, he never makes it overt, and she, because she's so socially awkward, like doesn't know, either. And so I kind of like that. um but yeah, I think Picardo is so good in that role, and I do really like the doc, and the Doctor is Rachel's favorite character in Voyager. Like she absolutely loved the Doctor. She loved Rachel likes psychoanalyzing characters. She loves psychology and everything about psychology. And so yeah, like she loves Vulcans and she loves the Doctor, like that they're like her absolute favorite. She wanted more Tuvok in the Doctor, actually, and that's another pairing in that show that doesn't get a lot of time. And again, it's just sad that the writers couldn't be more self-aware of like the connections they weren't making and be like, we do these characters together a lot. Why don't we like mix it up? Like, yes, we know that Tuvok can't stand Neelix, but Neelix like absolutely adores Tuvok, like, and we do that all the time. Like, maybe mix it up and put some characters together that we don't normally put together, because that got old. Like, I felt like the Neelix and Tuvok thing gets really old. Um, Although I remember when Rachel. So when Tuvok mind melds with Suter, the sociopath, on the ship, and like he's trying to restrain his like murderous instincts, and he does like, you don't know it's a holodeck program when it happens, but Neelix comes up to him and he just starts throttling him, and Rachel says, "This is the best day of my life." Before it turns out it's just a holodeck program. Oh, yeah, Rachel hated Neelix, but anyway. Um. All right, so
That's because Rachel's smart.
Okay, so we've taken a lot of time to talk about two characters, so we do kind of need to get things going a little. But Miranda, who is your favorite character?
Probably Balana. I just, I mean, like for one thing, I mean, yeah, as a little girl, seeing like having like a woman captain and a woman engineer was super cool because, they usually just been, the doctors or, caregiver kind of roles before. So like, getting them to be the science ladies was like very, very cool. And Balana had like childhood trauma, which like, I relate to for some reason. But just like I did like when they gave her good writing, which was not all the time, unfortunately, I did like how, that they had like this character who, she did kind of, struggle with, her anger issues and trying to get over her childhood trauma and trying to just like, be who she was and accept who she was and love who she was. And I thought that, that Roxanne Dawson was, always so fantastic. I mean, they gave her, her a lot of like kind of pretty raw emotional storylines, and so many times, I mean, like it's just she's so like just her performances are just so like raw and relatable. Like anybody who's ever like had childhood trauma reactivate or had a depression spiral or whatever, like she like it's so relatable, like you feel it so much. And I just love her, and I just like I want like I'm like protective of her because I'm like, okay, like she is so amazing, she's so smart, she's so talented, she's like all like, and like she deserves so much love, and like nobody like she rarely gets it. And I just like been on in the episodes where people like do like give her validation and support, I'm just like, yes, she needs this so much because like I mean like it, just that idea of like trying to like learn to like be yourself and love yourself, when other people don't, is it's like it's a very like human relatable thing. And I just like there's something about her that just like it's very real, and it gets to me. And yeah, I love Blana.
Stephanie, thoughts on Balana?
I agree a lot with Miranda. She was a underutilized character. I think that she was, like all women on the show, unfortunately subjected to our favorite showrunners issues of falling into a few stereotypes. Um, but overall, I always thought she was a really competent character. I especially liked her in the beginning when she was a lot more resistant to Starfleet ideals, but warmed into them. It wasn't just like she was just, oh, magically no longer Maquis and everything with Starfleet is grand. They treated that, I think, as one of the more realistic developments that they had in a lot of the show, with how she gradually came to become Starfleet, rather than using it as like a derogatory term towards people, and that she actually did earn her position as a chief engineer, rather than it just kind of being handed to her. She did work for it and was genius with it. And just her and Tom, they were so adorable. I thought they were a good pairing. One of the better Star Trek pairings that they have offered us.
Yeah, I certainly liked it better than Tom and Kess, which is where I thought the show was going. That I was like, oh, he's gonna steal her away from Neelix, and that's gonna be a thing, and it's gonna be, yeah. I was not really looking forward to that one. I thought that he and B'Elanna worked together a lot better.
Oh yeah.
I will say this, like one of the things that I feel like, because I think one of the reasons that Rachel really appreciated B'Elanna was this sort of idea of like B'Elanna is her own worst enemy, which I feel like is very real. Like the whole idea of like it wasn't that B'Elanna wasn't smart enough to be in Starfleet. Like B'Elanna was so worried that she would fail that she quit before she had a chance. And like that's something that a lot of people deal with, and that's like a real, sort of thing. And so like I felt like that like gave her a character hook that was a lot more, how do I say this? Like Star Trek characters generally, like the kinds of things that they deal with aren't super real. Like you can relate to them, but they're not like things that are so like easily connectable to real people in the real world. And I felt like that was one that was, sort of like directly like spoke to certain people. And so like, yeah, I feel like, and I really wish that that they kept with B'Elanna after season 3 to the degree they did, because it feels like so much of B'Elanna after season 3 is B'Elanna and Tom, and less about like B'Elanna just, being engineer. We certainly see her in engineering. We see her doing engineering stuff, but because they're focusing on other characters, the times we do see B'Elanna are usually focused more on relationships or emotional issues, which are good. And like Miranda said, Roxanne Dawson is really good at those scenes, but I would have liked more of B'Elanna purely as engineer also, because I think that that's one of the cool things about her. Like you said, Stephanie, that was one of the better developments they had in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like an actual progression of a character rather than just like, oh, suddenly the Maquis crew is fully integrated and we don't ever have to worry about that again. It just like, it's like a switch is thrown at one point and it's just like, oh, okay.
Like Chakotay. But yeah, they also handled her with a lot of nuance with her inner conflict between her Klingon side and her human side, which kind of went right along with her whole Starfleet story as well.
Yeah, it was kind of nice because even though we had a Vulcan on the crew, he was a full Vulcan, so we didn't deal with, so we had some of like the Spock traits, but not all of them. But like we had B'Elanna explore the whole like mixed heritage being pulled in two directions thing that was usually, like that was a Spock thing before, but like, she was able to like explore that, from the perspective of being someone who was Klingon and human and, what did that mean and everything. So it put a fresh spin on something that Star Trek had done before, but allowed them to do something different with it.
Sometimes though, I do feel like it veered a bit into kind of misogynist territory, because I feel like a lot of the times the way B'Elanna's Klingonness was presented was always as like a problem to be overcome. Like she's too Klingon, she's too aggressive, it's too much. Whereas like I've been also rewatching Next Gen, and like Worf is never presented that way. Like his Klingonness is never like presented as something that is like too much that he has to like deal with or tone down for anyone else. I mean, like, one of the things that really I noticed that bothered me on my Voyager rewatch is how many times, like, on the show, they have other characters make, that Klingon temper, that like toward B'Elanna. And I just like, it's so weird and gross. It's Star Trek is supposed to be about like a better future, having all these other characters who are supposed to be like good people and her friends do all these frankly kind of racist microaggressions toward her was like a really weird and gross choice that I noticed it on this rewatch. And I just like, I always like that kind of bothers me because it's like, okay, like part of B'Elanna's backstory is she experienced a lot of like, anti-Klingon bullying as a child, which made her like feel bad about herself and like feel bad about her Klingon heritage. But it's like, okay, so she has this trauma, but it's like the whole point of Star Trek as a show is that it's the idea that we as a society and we as people, as individuals, can be better and learn to be better. And like, if they're going to give her that backstory, like her part of her character arc should have been like, healing from that with like a supportive environment of like the Star Trek, the Starfleet people. And I feel like a lot of times she doesn't get that. And I feel like the writers like didn't even realize that what they were doing was actually racist microaggressions. I mean, so many times it's presented as like funny banter, but it comes off really kind of mean. And I just like that makes me really kind of sad,
That's part of what I was getting at with the whole misogyny comment earlier from the writers too, was the fact that they were using her Klingonness to fall into the stereotype of a Latin American woman, which was unfortunate in their portrayal, and they did just try to pan it off as her Klingon half instead, when the just heritage that they gave her, they knew damn well what they were doing in the back of their heads. But that was a very frustrating part of her character, was when they would brush it off like that. And then just to be an asshole. Plenty of people always criticized Worf about his Klingonness. It was all the other Klingons.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things that I point out all the time. Is it's like that's the funniest part about Worf is like I've studied everything. I know exactly what it's like to be a Klingon, and he's like around other Klingons. It's like, dude, lighten up. What's the matter with you? I think that's the funniest part about Worf.
Yeah.
The humans don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. But like the thing I noticed that was different about Worf is like all the other characters on the Next Gen, like they love and accept Worf for who he is. Like they know he's Klingon, they know he has this different heritage that's important to him, and they try to learn about it for him and like celebrate that with him. But I felt like on Voyager, everyone's always like giving B'Elanna crap about her Klingonness and like trying to like, like chide her into like getting into her Klingon stuff, even though it makes her uncomfortable. And it's like it doesn't feel like that's not like the loving, supportive environment that like Star Trek should be portraying, you know what I mean? And it's like, and I think because, I mean, the writers are pretty much largely white guys. I don't think they intended it to be mean like that, but like that's how racism works. When you're not the one who's the target of it, you don't see it every day. Whereas like if you are someone who's the target of it, all that stuff wears you down a little bit. And like, I mean, obviously, since, Klingons aren't, a real race of people, but nonetheless, like Star Trek is always, the alien species have always been sort of a metaphor for like different races and humanity getting along, So I feel like just having like this really weird kind of anti-Klingon tone suddenly in Voyager was like this huge shift, because like in Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, they spent so much time like building up Klingon culture and lore that it's this cool, deep, fascinating, they have this spirituality and this philosophy and stuff. And I feel like on Voyager, like whenever they reference Klingon stuff, it's always just like, it's always very heavy handed. And it's just like, oh, those Klingons, it's like, it's a really, really weird shift that I can only explain in that it's because B'Elanna's a woman. And we see very few female Klingon characters throughout Star Trek. I mean, most of the like Klingon characters that we have, long storylines about, or like really good arcs, really good writing are men. I mean, and even, even in B'Elanna's case, like B'Elanna and Kayla are like the two most prominent female Klingon characters, but they're both half human, because I think there was probably some idea that like, well, we've got to soften them and make them a little prettier and a little softer to make them attractive to like, the white male gaze or whatever. And like, I really don't think it, like, I think maybe Grilka in Deep Space Nine was like the only like full Klingon female character who was ever like portrayed as like positive or good or like, attractive in some way. And it just like, there's this weird kind of undertone of like, it's cool and sexy and badass for a man to be like this fierce warrior, but like for a woman it's like it's too much and it's a little too scary and she's got to tone it down and accommodate us and stuff like that. And like that kind of like always bothered me a lot about that, because it's like, especially the episode where they have like B'Elanna, like they separated her Klingon, her human half, right? And it's like her Klingon half is so aggressive and her human half is the shrinking Violet who's afraid of everything. It's like okay, even if they could separate the two of them, it's like her basic personality is not dictated by like her DNA. Like both of her human and Klingon half would have had the same experiences growing up and in their lives. So like a human woman would be just as angry about, her parents splitting up and people treating her like crap as a Klingon
Okay,
woman.
let's not talk about genetics in Star Trek, because I've seen the preview for the next season of Strange New Worlds, where because some of the human characters get Vulcan DNA, they instantly become logical. Let's just throw away the whole idea that there's years of training to get them that way, and just be like, oh, little Vulcan DNA, now suddenly you talk like in a monotone and you are completely logical. And it's like, yeah, no, like Star Trek, like the writers are not scientists. Like they don't.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's that's not B'Elanna specifically. I feel like they're bad on that kind of stuff, in general.
Yeah, I suppose. That could be it too.
But yeah, I mean, I will say this. So I mean, like, I do that side of it didn't come out to me so much on this rewatch, and it wasn't something I was looking for. I will say this: we did have a whole episode devoted to Tom, basically like telling B'Elanna that like there's nothing wrong with her, and that like she's worried about her child being a quarter Klingon and her child being mistreated like she was mistreated, and Tom is completely loving and completely like there's nothing wrong with you that needs to be removed from our child, like you're great just as you are.
That is one of my favorite scenes, because like that for me, like that is the validation that I've been waiting for her to get from some other character on the show for the whole series, because it's like that's really what she needs, and like the whole point of like healing is finding your people in a safe space where they accept you and like, validate you, and like to finally have her have that. And for Tom to be the one to give her that too, especially, was so important for their relationship and for, their character growth. And I just like that. I really did appreciate that they finally put that in there toward the end, because that really was like something that like for her character arc was like so desperately needed. And I'm really glad that we did eventually get that.
And that's why they're one of the only good ships on Star Trek that is
honestly
Starship.
For real.
Wait. Who else? You said it's one of the only. Who else do you accept? Because I'm gonna have problems if you don't accept some.
I mean, Deanna is fantastic with Riker.
Okay. I'm not big on that one, but I'm fine with it because it's certainly canon. I mean, it's just I never felt like they were like perfect, but
I mean, they don't have to be perfect. I kind of like the fact that at least Deanna completely embraces his just.
Okay, so why wasn't your first answer Worf and Dax? Because to me, that's like that's like the perfect Star Trek couple.
They had issues, but they were a good pair too.
Okay. Fine.
Worf was a little bit of a stick in the mud sometimes.
That's why they're a great couple. Because he's a stick in the mud and she's a party animal. I feel like that makes them great. All right. Eric, I know we've been talking about B'Elanna for a while. Do you have anything to add?
I feel like I have nothing to add, because my nerdy brain, and the reason why I love B'Elanna as much as I do, because she reminded me of another character that was on an animated series on like a completely different time of day and place, and it was comic book related because B'Elanna is, at least in my opinion, B'Elanna basically is Hawk Girl.
Oh,
They
I'll take
no,
it.
like the
Mhm.
parallel between the two, especially the way their stories were told and the way like their stories were approached and written, because obviously like the whole traitor to her own people and that kind of like that ideology and like grappling with the fact that like she has the humanity that she has, but she's also worried about like literally they're very similar characters, at least in the way they were presented in
Oh yeah.
Justice League with Hawkgirl and B'Elanna in live action and Star Trek. Like they were on very similar journeys, and it was really cool to kind of see that progression happening at the same time in two different forms of science fiction in very different ways. But like even as a little, even as a teenager, I could see that bit in storytelling. So I don't know if they were like similar writers working on things, or it just was like one of those kismet type of things where it's like, okay, you have that story being explored there and this story being explored there by two very different characters who share very similar backgrounds.
Okay, internet, hot girl B'Elanna mashup. Give it to us.
Right.
All right.
Awesome. I love Delana though. And I mean her like Stephanie said, I mean, well, she didn't say it, but relationship goals. Tom and B'Elanna are very much relationship goals. I mean, especially when it comes to Star Trek couples and what has happened with Star Trek couples. I mean, literally just the only other one we can think of we brought up is the only other healthy one with yeah. Wow, Breaker and now I can't think of names.
Right.
Troy, yeah, Donna Troy, not Donna Troy. Wow,
You really do have comics on the brain.
I do, because the name Troy and my brain just goes, oh, what? Yeah, Wonder Girl. Yeah, we'll go there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All
no,
right. Yeah.
but yeah, go ahead.
That's a mashup. That's a weird mashup. So let's not do that
That
one.
is a very weird mashup.
All
No,
right.
we're good.
All right. So since my two favorite were taken with the Doctor and Seven of Nine, I will go with Tuvok. Because like I said, Spock was always my favorite Star Trek character. I also love Data quite a bit. And I mean, like definitely my favorite in Next Gen. And so I mean, Tuvok was just a natural like character to gravitate towards. I feel like after we had a bunch of really bad Vulcan side characters for years, like it was great to have somebody actually like give it their all. And I feel like Tim Russ like does a fantastic, Vulcan. Like finally like somebody who doesn't feel like their only way to be a Vulcan is to be completely monotonous and, have nothing at all. Like, Tuvok emote subtly, which is what a Vulcan character should do. Like, it's not that they don't have emotions, they just repress. And so I do like the fact that Tim Russ was, a good enough actor that he could do that he could play those levels. And I think that they did a fantastic job, like finding somebody. Like one of the things that I wish we had more of, and it's kind of like the whole Curzon and Cisco thing, like, and Rachel used to talk about this one too, is she wanted more backstory for Tuvok and Janeway's friendship. We know they've been friends for years, but we get very, very little like information about that. And I mean, I would have loved to have delved more into that, but like they trust each other completely. So that there's like a ton of backstory there about like their friendship and relationship, and they play it so it's there. But again, I would have liked more details around it too. Like I would have loved to have had more times for them to do stuff together that wasn't just like, well, Captain, I've got to tell you about this security risk, or like, stuff like that. Like it's a lot of that, and I wish we had more with them. But I love Tuvok. I love Tuvok as a mentor. Like they did that a lot with Cass, of course, and I liked like the way that he was mentoring her and like her psychic powers. But they even did that with B'Elanna a little bit. There was like Tuvok talking to her about like B'Elanna feels her own anger as a problem. So I know, Miranda, you were bringing out that a lot of other people comment on it. I felt like B'Elanna's problem was more of her own because she'd been bullied so much for being a Klingon that she had self-loathing, and that the self-loathing was kind of her problem. And I felt that there was a lot more of that, like in her character, that she saw a problem with her being Klingon that not necessarily everybody else did. But Tuvok was, willing to help teach her like techniques to like control her anger and things like that. And I thought that that was, I liked that aspect of it. And I loved seeing Tuvok in that role. And I just wanted to see more of him that wasn't just Neelix again. Like, yes, we played that. We don't need to keep playing it constantly. And that's where the writers kept going with him. And I feel like he's also more talented than they gave him stuff for, because like he's a musician. Um, and I think he does sing like maybe in one episode or something, but like he doesn't sing a lot. He doesn't do a lot. And then, maybe it would be a little out of character for him to sing, but like didn't find, I feel like, the kinds of things they found for the Doctor to get him to show his range that he was capable of, or not often. And I would have liked to have seen more of that. But yeah, I definitely love Tuvok. I feel like he was a great part of the show. And I feel bad that he was sidelined a lot, because they had other characters who, were playing were kind of out of place on this ship that's, full of people who are different than us. And they got to do a lot more than he did. But yeah. Eric, thoughts on Tuvok?
I love Tim Ross. He's so awesome. I mean, Tuvok was always one of my favorite characters. Even like I said, even when I could acknowledge the fact that like he basically got underplayed, even though like the way he played that role was so much different than any other Vulcan that we'd seen throughout Star Trek.
I
And
mean, the good
the
Vulcans in
right,
Star Trek are Leonard Nimoy, Mark Leonard as Sarek, and then it's Tuvok, and all the other ones
Tuvok,
just
yeah.
like feel very one note.
Yeah. No, and it's insane because it's like like you could tell the writing was there for him. It's just other characters started to get prominence over him, so it would feel like he gets skipped over on all the like the really good stuff. And even when sadly he got spotlights, we got the nightmare fuel that was combining him with a whole nother character. But anyway,
Oh God, not Tuvix.
it became a running joke and it became a low running joke in Lower Decks, so we got to give it partial credit. But the fact that it's nightmare fuel in the first place, I was really trying my hardest to find the perfect way to sneak the Spaceballs joke in, but I couldn't make it work. Because Tim Ross has one of the best scenes in Spaceballs, right? Well, I was trying not to say it because I didn't want to make Nate have to censor something.
Yeah,
I've
it
already
happens.
dropped a couple of little sensors for him, so
I try to behave on this show. I try.
I do
Sometimes
too,
it fails.
but
Now, Eric, since you like to bring up the comic connections, did you know that Tim Russ played the Prowler on the 90s Spider-Man animated show?
I'm trying to think. What did he do? Oh wait, no, that wasn't. I I had a moment because no, it wasn't Tim. I was I was thinking an even greater comic book connection, but it wasn't Tim Ross. It was Michael Dorn.
Hmm.
Recently wrote a not Cyborg. Come on, brain work. Steel miniseries for DC.
Hmm.
But that's my brain got excited for a second, and then I realized it wasn't Tim Ross, it was Michael Dorn, and I was like, "Crap, there that goes." No, I didn't know he played Prowler. That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. Yeah. Stephanie, thoughts on Tupac?
he, in my opinion, is the Vulcan. I actually like his portrayal better than Leonard Nimoy's for Spock, but but Spock also was part human, so
Right.
that gives him a slightly different category here. But yeah, no, Tim Russ has always been my definitive Vulcan. Well, I guess not always, but since he came around, I just loved how much emotion he expressed without expressing emotion.
Hmm.
The subtle, constant, just eyebrow raise whenever somebody says anything slightly ridiculous. He was just the epitome of showing that logical, non-expressive expression. Or non-expressive emotion, rather. Yeah, he was massively underrated, and another character that I was happy to see return in Picard. I just wish it would have actually been him.
Yeah.
But
I had issues that they didn't go to Janeway, but that's a whole other
yeah.
podcast. But anyway, it's like Seven goes to Tuvok. Like, doesn't she have a stronger connection to Janeway, who would be higher up the chain of command anyway? All right, anyway.
I mean, I guess that just adds to the new fan theory that they were besties, just hanging out, doing absolutely no
Yeah.
together.
All right, Miranda.
Yeah, I love Tuvok. I totally agree. He was way underutilized. I mean, Tim Russ is just so fantastic. I mean to me, like he is like the quintessential like Vulcan portrayal because yeah, like Spock was half human, so that conflict between him was always kind of his thing. But like Tuvok's like the full Vulcan, like your average Vulcan on the street. You know what I mean? Like, and he just like with the subtlest expressions, he just conveys the full range of Tuvok's emotions and relationships, and I really just I enjoy how they made him actually like a really, it's subtle, but he's actually like this deeply caring, loving character. I mean, the way he always talks about his children and his family is just always like it. There's so much love there, even though Vulcans aren't supposed to express emotion. He is always like that, and he is always like kind and mentoring toward like almost all of the other characters. At some point, he has like great advice for them and like reassuring words for them, and his friendship with Captain Janeway is just like so beautiful. I mean, I do agree that I wish we'd gotten a little more of their backstory but I mean, even without it, you can tell there's just so much there. I mean, the like Tuvok is just like he's like so much like tenderer with her than he is with almost anybody else, and it's just so sweet how, especially with Janeway being like so like effusive, she's always like touching people and hugging people, and usually Tuvok hates that, but like when Janeway needs him, he'll accept it because he cares about her so much, and it's just like it's so beautiful, like that those two characters' relationship, and just how Tim Russ just portrays Tuvok is just so great. Like he's the good space dad that we all wish we had, honestly. Like he's terrific.
Even when he disagrees with Janeway, though, he trusts her implicitly, so he
Yeah.
will back down. Like he won't insist on it. Like, I mean, yeah, there's the she outranks him, but like you can tell that that's not the thing. The thing is he trusts her judgment to a degree that he'll put aside like whatever his logic is telling him to go along with what Janeway wants because he believes that she will come to the right decision.
hmm Yeah. I just, I just wish we'd have gotten like more episodes with Tuvok and Tuvok and Janeway's friend. I mean, there's quite a few, but like I just like I can't get enough of it. I love it so much. I think it's one of the great Star Trek friendships.
Yeah, I
Definitely
wish
between
it
those
was more
two.
front and center in an episode because there's a lot
Oh
of episodes
yeah.
where they talk
Oh
about it and where it's a
yeah.
side point, but there's never
Yeah.
like then I can't remember one where it was
Yeah.
like this is the focus of the episode is their friendship, and I would have liked at least the
Yeah.
one episode like that.
I wish there had been one that had just been like, them together on a mission on a planet somewhere or something. Cause like so many times it's like, it's always like the side thing. It's like their little scenes, and their little scenes are always like the emotional core of like whatever episode it ends up in. So it's like, yeah, like focus on that. Like that should have been like the center of at least one episode. That would have been so great.
Yeah, I mean, there's this great thing that like Rachel and I used to laugh about where like they all think they're gonna die because it's the one where like the ship is getting like stretched in space or whatever, and they end up having just like one route. Like they all go to the holodeck because it's like in the center of the ship or whatever. It's like the last place that isn't being like distorted in space or whatever. And there's this great part where like Tuvok says to Chakotay, like, I absolutely do not believe that you should be first officer and it should have been me. Like, basically, he doesn't say it in quite those words, but it's like, but it's what the captain decided. And so, like, I trust her, like, and it's like, Rachel and I used to always joke about, like, Tuvok just going, like, yeah, he's going to die on this away mission, and then I'm finally going to be first officer, like, he just hates the fact that Chakotay was made first officer, but yeah, but again, it speaks to the fact that, like, Tuvok, just trusts, like, what Janeway's decision is. And yeah, I absolutely love that. Um, um,
Sure.
let's talk about Tom, I think, because here's the thing about Tom. Tom was the kind of character that I was definitely predisposed to dislike as a teen because I hated the popular guy, the guy that, like, is like, oh, like, everybody loves him because he's, like, wild and, like, does what he wants and all the women, like, swoon and all that kind of crap. And, like, and the funny thing is, so I fell off with the show because of the situation that I had as a kid, right at the time when they, like, started just taking all that stuff out of Tom. Like, it's just like, because, he's presented as he's the wild one, he's the dangerous one, he's the skirt chaser. And it's like all this stuff. And they, like, were really, like, heavy on that for the first 2 seasons. And then suddenly it's just like, oh no, Tom's actually, like, a pretty stand-up guy. And, he's going to have a stable relationship with B'Elanna. And, like, we're going to do all this stuff. And suddenly it's just like, they just realized, I think, that there was just nowhere to go with that original sort of idea that they had for the character, that they were just like, it's just like, take all of that out of it. And so, yeah, I really appreciate Tom, like, in the later, like, episodes. Like, I do feel like the sort of, like, I gotta make the ship look like the inside of a hot rod, kind of stuff, like, is a little, okay, you want a bunch of 20th century references, so you always have to have a character that, like, will be, like, the insider for the audience. And, okay, that's a little bit silly, but, like, otherwise it's like, Tom's a pretty stand-up guy. I appreciate Tom. So, it's like, and honestly, like I was talking about with Miranda, like, Tom is like their relationship, like, for a guy that was originally presented as the skirt chaser that's got a woman in every port, is like one of, like, the best, like, boyfriend presentations in, like, media, like, as far as, like, just being, like, understanding and, like, wants to be there for his partner, and, like, all the kinds of things that you would want to be there, affectionate, loving, all that stuff. And I love the fact that B'Elanna will, like, do things like, I've created you like a 1960s television set or whatever. It's just like, I know this is some dorky thing that you like, so, like, here you go. I love them as couple. And Captain Proton is the best thing ever done in Star Trek ever. I will brook
It's
no
so fun.
arguments.
Yeah, Tom, honestly, I was debating whether I should choose Tom and B'Elanna, or B'Elanna, as my favorite characters, because they're both my favorite characters, quite honestly. Like, I know like Tom has, like, a certain reputation, but, like, okay, like, he is, like, people are wrong about him. uh, like, I mean, because obviously, because they started out in the very first season, like, oh, he's a bad boy, he's a ladies' man, and it's like, and it was terrible. It, like, ick, no, like, nobody like that.
Well, the
You know,
funny thing is they actually have him less related. Like, they talk about how much of a
oh yeah,
ladies' man he is.
I know.
But we don't see it on screen that much.
That's
Like,
the
it's very
hilarious thing.
rare.
I have actually been tracking the number of romantic subplots during my Voyager rewatch, and Tom actually has one of the fewest. I mean, aside from B'Elanna, he only ever had, like, 3 romantic subplots in the entire series, and literally every other character has got, like, 10. So Tom, as I mean, as soon as they put him together with B'Elanna, it's like he's the good guy family man, like, which I think is great. And I think Tom is a great character because he had a character arc. I mean, he starts off, they portray it like he's a bad boy, but really he's not. He's a sad boy because he's got, like, all this trauma from his accident. He got kicked out of Starfleet, didn't know where he was going. He disappointed his father and stuff like this. But, like, the thing about, like, when he joins Voyager, he finds his family in, the support of the crew, and, like, he drops all that, like, obnoxious, like, macho guy nonsense, and becomes, like, it's like, oh, actually, I can be just a normal person and I can be happy here. And I think that's, like, really, really a nice thing to see, like, his character growing and changing, and it happens pretty quickly. I mean, even in like by season 2, I mean, when they have that whole like continuing subplot of like, who's the spy for the Kazon and stuff like that. I mean, like which also is another thing I have to like say about I really like that they did that with, they had the continuing subplot like in kind of in the background of all the episodes in season 2. Like it was kind of a nice like mix between like, the episodic of Next Gen and the serialized of Deep Space Nine, because like the individual episodes were all about something different, but they had that little thread in the back that all wrapped up at the end, which I thought was really cool. And it was, and I think it was a clever way to use Tom, because but I also think it kind of did his character dirty in the opinion of the audience, because the audience wasn't in on the fact that Tom was in on the spy thing, that he was purposefully acting out and being crappy to people in order to support, him, believably leaving the ship so that he could figure out who the Kazon spy was. I mean, like for story-wise, like it's a great idea, but I think like it made people believe that his character was an asshole for longer than he was. So I think maybe that kind of helped sort of, kind of taint people's opinions of him, because really, I mean, even in, season 2 and by season 3, like Tom is like, he's just the nicest sunshine boy. You know what I mean? It's like, he's not like
All
this,
right,
like,
I do need to raise my hand here, because wasn't season 3 when he and Neelix were competing for Cass? I'm pretty sure that was 3,
that was
not
season
2.
2. That
Was
was
it?
season
Okay.
2. It was
Okay.
season 2. And much as I hate that subplot, I mean, at the very least, like Tom did say, like, she's with someone else and I respect that, not going to do anything about it. Like, that's, yeah, okay, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, I mean, although I do have major issues with that episode where that happened, because they made that episode about Neelix and Tom when that episode needed to be about Neelix and Kes, because Neelix's treatment of Kes was absolutely deplorable. That whole season, he did nothing but yell at her and accuse her and refuse to believe anything she said. And like the idea of like, oh, well, a man told me that she's not cheating on me, so I believe this random guy that I'm a coworker with, rather than the word of my girlfriend, is a majorly gross, sexist, problematic story plot. But that's another point entirely. We're talking about Tom. Yeah, I like how they just changed his character from trying to make him cool into just letting him be a nerd. Because once he was a nerd, then it's like, oh, okay, he's relatable, because he's kind of the audience insert character then, because he likes all this nerdy stuff. And obviously, those of us watching Star Trek, we're nerds too. We get excited about nerdy stuff. So it was like he was kind of, and and he knows all the 20th century pop culture references. So he's like the relatable character that we can all see ourselves in. And I definitely did. I mean, out of all the characters on Voyager, like Tom is like my self-insert character. Like, yeah, that would be me. I'd be on the holodeck with my old-timey sci-fi stuff and listening to my, 60s rock and roll and stuff like that. So yeah, I think he became a much more well-rounded character than he started out as. And of course, his relationship with B'Elanna is really lovely. And how he just becomes, this, very devoted, very, caring guy who's like, excited to have a kid and stuff. And it's just he had a really great character arc, I think, and a lot of growth, and became a better person. It was really nice.
And you completely forgot to mention his whole like big brother attitude with Harry Kim.
Harry.
Yes.
Two of them were besties, and I loved their holodeck adventures together. Sometimes it almost felt like Tom was being the Playboy character just to try and help build up Harry's confidence, because he was the one who definitely struggled with approaching people, at least.
Yeah, Harry was falling sometimes into the Geordi
Yes.
issue of being a little too like, he never quite got as creepy as Geordi got in some cases, but like he definitely got into the, like, dude, just tone it down a little bit. Like,
I think that's partly because Geordi's best friend was an android who didn't recognize the emotions, whereas Harry's bestie was Tom, who was like, yeah, scale it back a bit, dude.
yeah, I mean, for Tom, one of the things that disappointed me, though, I mean, it's not nothing to do with the character, but I do feel like when we finally do meet his dad is way too nice. Like, I wanted his dad to be more of the harder, strict, character that he had described, and so that there would be more of a, because it almost feels like it's kind of like, oh, Dad, we're talking again. Everything's great now, and it's just like I would have liked for there to have had to be more development between like a much more like strict authoritarian father, and instead they picked like one of the guys from Seinfeld to play his dad. Like, he was the guy who was, you know like worked at the baseball thing, Yankee Stadium. He was the guy that worked at Yankee Stadium on Seinfeld, and I was like, that's not really the actor that like should have picked for Tom's dad. But all right, whatever. Eric, thoughts on Tom?
Everything has been covered when it comes to Tom, other than the fact that I will repeat, Tom is awesome, and it is impossible not to love Tom. It's also fun Star Trek lore is the fact that the actor had the actor in question played two very different
Nick Locarno,
who may or may not have shown up in Lower Decks. What?
I loved that
It's
in
so
Lower
good.
Decks. I don't see the resemblance.
well, my friend Tommy and I talked about this, where it's like, in hindsight, because I didn't recognize that when I first saw Voyager, because it had been, even though I did watch a lot of Next Gen, like in because it was constantly being rerun, like, and so like I don't know how I didn't realize that he was Nick Locarno when I first watched Voyager. So definitely something I clued into at some point. And I'll say this, like, I don't know. I realized that the character of Tom was written before they cast him, but I almost feel like once they cast him, they should have reworked the character to make it Nick Locarno, and I think that would have been a lot more interesting if Janeway got him out of prison and he had been the one that was taken like with them, because they could easily said that he fell in with the Maquis after leaving Starfleet Academy and could have like kind of merged the stories there.
I do actually know the story behind this. Originally, Tom Paris was supposed to be Nick Locarno, but the problem was if they'd have used Nick Locarno, they would have to have paid the writer of the First Duty episode for a royalty for every single episode he was in. And considering that they figured the show would run 7 years, they did not want to do that. So they tweaked it a little to have it be a character was kind of like Nick Locarno, a Nick Locarno type, and that's why they picked Robbie McNeil, is because like he played Nick Locarno. That was the type they were looking for. So it could very easily, if it hadn't been for the money aspect, it was going to be Nick Locarno, which obviously would have been really interesting. But on the other hand, I also think I'm kind of glad it's not, because if you watch the first two, Nick Locarno really is like a manipulative asshole, and it would have taken a lot more work to redeem a character like that than Tom, who actually is a pretty nice guy from the start. And I like, given the variability in the Voyager writers' ability to like really understand and develop the characters, I don't know if they would have been so successful with Nick Locarno. I'm not sure they had the prowess to do, quite honestly.
I mean, it's certainly fair. I feel like, it depends on which way you're coming at it, because I'm coming at it as, if they really wanted to make him a dangerous character, that would have worked better. Because I mean, like, when you finally do get like Tom's backstory, it's like Tom's a milksop. He joined the Maquis for like 5 minutes, instantly got caught, and then like but like he wants everybody to think like, oh, I'm so big and bad, like, and everything. But it's like, really, like, Tom did nothing. Like, he did nothing wrong, like, other than like join the Maquis for 5 seconds.
He's just a nice Starfleet boy who lost his way. That's all.
I mean, I always sound like a broken record, but like, people, if they want, the payoff with the Nick Locarno stuff, I mean, Lower Decks absolutely nailed it. What was that, end of season 4, right? Mm-hmm. The 2-parter? Yep.
All right. So Stephanie, of our remaining characters, is there somebody you'd want to bring up?
Well, I know I'm pretty confident who you're trying to goad me into mentioning here, because I have developed a soft spot for Neelix.
I wasn't actually goading you towards Neelix, but as soon as you said that you thought I was goading, I knew where you were going to go, because
it's not so much the character, but I have a 14-year-old Maine Coon that I named Neelix. And he is my big fluffy orange ball of love and hatred, and he is the most food motivated creature on the planet, so I picked the name well. Not to mention he's an orange with gold eyes, and yeah, there's definitely a resemblance. Back when I first adopted him, I actually had I was watching Voyager at the time, which is how I ended up naming him Neelix, because the resemblance was uncanny. And I did have a picture that I posted to Facebook one time of Neelix and Neelix on Netflix, because it was my cat sitting next to my iPad where I was watching an episode on Netflix. And then when we got a second cat, I wanted to name him Tuvok, but I was overruled with that one. But yeah, so Neelix is, as a character, is insufferable comic relief at times. But because I chose to name my cat after him, I have a soft spot for him now. That doesn't directly relate to the character.
Yeah.
But
That's fun. I mean, it's funny because, like, if any of you are familiar, and you're probably not, but there was a cartoon in the 80s called Thundercats, and there was a creature that they had called Snarf, and I always said Neelix was Snarf. Like, and so if anyone's familiar with that show, I'm like, they basically occupy the same, like, role within the series.
I find Snarf to be a lot more insufferable than Neelix.
Okay.
Especially once Kiss is out of the show, he becomes less creepy and more bearable. But yeah, Neelix is one of my favorite, not favorite characters, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, Neelix is a very strange thing to me, because it's like, because one of the things Rachel talked about is, why isn't Neelix like leaving the ship when they're leaving like the area of space that he knows? And it's like, okay, well, he really loves these people now, he wants to stick with them, and then they decide to write him out just before the last episode, where it's just like, what happened to wanting to see Earth and wanting to stick with the Voyager crew? It's like, oh, Talaxians, I'm gonna stay here. And it's like, there were Talaxians 4 years ago and you could have stayed with them. But like it's this weird thing of, it's just like, I don't understand why they felt the need to write him out just before the last episode. It's like, you could have just let him just stick with it at that point and just go on into the last episode. It's so weird.
Yeah. And also, to be fair, I completely forgot when I got my Neelix that Barkley had named his cat Neelix also.
Nice.
I did it more for the resemblance of the cat and the character. And then I got to, after I decided on his name, I got to the end where we see Barkley and his cat. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Barkley named his cat Neelix.
Yeah. So Eric's already mentioned that he doesn't care for Neelix. Miranda, what are your thoughts on Neelix?
I mean, Neelix is weirdly almost two different characters, because in the first two seasons when he's with Kes, he is like mean and like so nasty to her just all the time. He is always accusing her of having affairs with every single person he meets, like telling her who she can and can't be friends with, where she shouldn't be. Like, he is just truly awful to her, and I like cannot stand him at all in those first two seasons when he was with Kes. But as soon as he and Kes break up, and like then he just kind of becomes like the lovable comic relief that's just like there with a little, some home cooking and some good advice for everybody. And it's like it's like that Neelix is like, okay, yes, like that Neelix is all right. But like, yeah, like when he was with Cass, it was just, oh yuck. I did not like him at all. And I mean, I always also, the way he treated Tuvok always kind of bothered me, because like like it was kind of supposed to be like funny that he's like so into Tuvok and Tuvok can't stand him, but I actually thought it was like kind of disrespectful on Neelix's part. It's like, it's
He
if someone said,
stated his preferences, and Neelix is constantly like going, yeah, that's one of the things Rachel really hated about Neelix, is it's like Tuvok has made it clear what his boundaries are, and Neelix does not respect them at all.
exactly. Yeah, like that always like bothered me. Like there's this like, I mean on the like yeah, Neelix is like he's like they're trying to write two different characters because on the one hand, like yes, he's the funny, comic relief guy, but on the other hand, like they're giving him some like really like kind of like mean, rude character traits that are very like not cool or okay. I mean, it's like you have to respect other people, when they tell you this is how I feel or this is what's going on, like you have to like back off eventually. And Neelix never does that in his relationships when he's like super into somebody, and that's a little icky to watch. So, I mean, like, I'm kind of neutral on Neelix. There's aspects of him I really very much dislike, and aspects of him that are kind of okay and kind of nice. So I mean, I once again just a victim of Voyager's extremely uneven writing. I feel like.
And they've said the name enough to summon my cat.
Well, I also feel like after they change him from being the morale officer to the ambassador, I feel like they tone him down a lot. Like not with Tuvok. With Tuvok, he's still very annoying, but like there's a lot of stuff in the first 3 seasons where he's trying to get the crew's spirits up, and it's just like, oh my God, just stop. Like it's like this sort of like fake, super happy stuff. Like it's like all the jokes about like camp counselors and stuff like that, like in sort of the way that they just have this sort of like faux happiness that, like everybody hates because it's like comes from such a fake place. And it's like that was just really grating. But like once he stops trying to do that stuff, like he does settle down a lot as a character. And like even though like I said, like Rachel couldn't stand him, like she definitely told me at the end of the show, like they definitely did a lot of like they definitely helped a lot like through the other seasons of like sort of like ratcheting him down and making him like a far more tolerable character. um Eric, anything to add about Neelix?
No, you hit it, especially the last couple seasons where it's like, okay, cool, let's tone him down a lot, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think we haven't, as far as regulars, we haven't like gone into Janeway, Harry, or Kess yet. So who would you like us to go into?
Well, my favorite thing about Janeway?
I love
Eric.
Captain.
The fact
What?
that she could do something that Picard never did. Shut Q up. She's the only captain.
Everybody's got a better track record with Q than Picard does. Like Cisco punches him in the face and he doesn't show up again.
True, because Cisco is Cisco and doesn't put up with any crap. But Janeway flat out just goes, "If you don't get off of my ship in the next 5." I love everything about Janeway's relationship with Q. Versus, like Picard and Q is more like back and forth. Janeway's just like, I am sick of your crap. Get away from me right now. And then, of course,
and yet she still ends up making friends with him and being the godmother to his son. Like Janeway is such a badass. Like who else could do that? Come on.
It's true.
Yeah, I Janeway, it's weird. Like it's like Star Trek has this track record of the third season, with the ones after the original series, where the third seasons where they finally figure out their captain. Because same thing with Picard. First 2 seasons, Picard's like a real stick in the mud. He's really boring, and it's sort of like the third season when they figure out like, oh, maybe even though he's older, he can do action stuff, and maybe we can like have him do like sort of adventurous things and make him more interesting. And then suddenly Picard like takes off. Cisco, first 2 seasons, I don't know, there's not a lot going on with Cisco. Suddenly like Cisco like shaves his head and grows a goatee, and suddenly like the Cisco arrives, and he's suddenly really cool. And same thing with Janeway. I feel like first 2 seasons there wasn't a lot to Janeway, and suddenly in season 3 they like figure her character out, and suddenly Janeway isn't just like, oh, she's like a scientist woman captain, which scientist is fine, and I appreciate that a lot more now. When I was first watching the show, I didn't really think Janeway was all that interesting until the third season. But certainly in the third seasons, was sort of like we get Janeway who's not afraid of the Borg.
I was gonna say Janeway literally intimidates the Borg. Not even Picard has that under his belt.
Like they suddenly decide. Well, because there's this mistake that people think that it's like if you make someone feminine, they can't be strong, like, and they can't be like fearless. And, and I feel like Janeway can be all those things. She can be in charge. She can be feminine. She can be, she can love her Jane Austen holodeck pseudo novel, pseudo Jane Austen novels, and she can also be fearless and go and stare down the Borg and Q and all that kind of stuff. And it's like Janeway suddenly becomes amazing to me in season 3 for somebody that I didn't think was all that. But like I say, Picard and Cisco are the same way. First 2 seasons, they're not very interesting, and suddenly in season 3, it's just like whoa. And yeah, I love Janeway after season 3. I love the just like I mean she for all the talk of Picard and the Borg and the Borg are obsessed with Picard and Picard's obsessed with the Borg and all that, Janeway's the one that actually does something about it. And that's one of the things I had a problem with the Picard series is it's like, so the Borg Queen's been sitting plotting revenge on Picard for all this time, and I'm like, Janeway's the one who blew you all up. Like, why isn't Janeway like the source of your anima? Like, why isn't she plotting to get rid of Janeway? Well, we didn't have the actor. Well, okay, but I mean, like, that's not a good reason in universe, like
Right?
Anyway.
Cisco's technically the war criminal versus Janeway's literally the one that pacified the Borg. It's kind of like you look at all the captains compared to each other, and when you do that, you realize, wait, Kirk's not even on the board at this point. Yeah, that's right. I'm throwing shade. What?
Yeah. No, just I love Janeway from like day one. Like caretaker, I'm like, oh my God, she's amazing. I mean, also, being a little girl and seeing a woman captain for the first time probably hits a lot different than any other experience, I gotta say. But I just remember like that in caretaker, that speech at the end where she's like, we're gonna find a way home, and just like Kate Mulgrew, she just has so much presence. Like I did not realize that she's like so much shorter than all the men in the cast because like she just has so much presence. You think she's like 6 feet tall. I mean, because like when she walks on that bridge, like she's all you notice. She is amazing, and I love how her character is just yes, a science nerd, awesome, and B, I love that she's fearless. Like she's so gutsy. Like from the get-go, like almost every episode, whatever is like the craziest, most long shot like thing that they could do to get out of whatever situation that's probably not going to work, she's like, buckle up, we're doing it. And I just like, I love that so much, and it always works. It's like, yay, it's so great. I just and
Caffeinated chaos incarnate.
Yeah.
Also being everybody's mother.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like people joke about like Janeway being the mom of the crew, but like she kind of is, because the crew becomes like this family, because it's like they're thrown together, all they have is each other, they have to live with each other, and it's like they do have like a weird like kind of family dynamic at the end of the day, and she does. And like Janeway is like, I feel like she's so interesting because like in a weird way she kind of is like a single mom, because it's like she's the one who is out there on her own with no support from Starfleet or anyone anywhere, and she is responsible for the health, safety, and lives of like all of these people on her crew, and she's got to put that first. She's got to get them through everything like on her own. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like she's the ultimate authority in any situation. The buck stops here. So it's like whenever I see like fandom discussions of people criticizing her, I'm like, listen, Janeway was in a position that no other Starfleet captain ever had to deal with. It's like she had to do this stuff on her own, and that's hard, and she did it. And and I appreciate how at times they showed her like struggling with the guilt of like, oh my God, I got them out here, and I feel terrible about this, and I want to sacrifice myself to save them. And like the episode where they're all like, no, we're not letting you do this, you're coming with us, and that's it. And it was just like, I love her so much, and I love that so much. And it's just there's just something about Voyager. Like, I mean, I love all of the Starfleet crews, and they all love each other, and I love that. But like, there's something like extra kind of like I don't know, like just like because of like the sort of the loneliness and the direness of their circumstances about Voyager, that makes it kind of like extra tragic, extra poignant in a weird kind of way, and I just like, and just Janeway is just like, she's the linchpin of that, because they all love her. I mean, like every time, like little Harry Kim, like back in like season 2, like when they had to almost leave her at Chakotay on that planet, Harry almost stages a mutiny because like, we are getting Captain Janeway back. And I just love that. Like they all like believe in her and love her just so much. And it's just like it's so beautiful. And I believe in her and love in her too as a viewer. I just like, I mean, just and then she does everything. She's smart, but she'll also take out a phaser and like, go after aliens in her tank top, which was very cool. And
Macroviri.
just like, yeah, I just love, and I do love that they made her, multifaceted. Like, she's like, so many times I hear guys complain about like, well, why is she in this stupid Jane Eyre Hollow novel? And it's like, no, I love that. Like, I love that. Like,
I have more of a problem with they set
novels.
it up and they never let us finish that Hollow novel with her. I'm like, what was going on there? There was some weird stuff going on in that story. Show us the rest of that story.
I loved her Hollow novel. I like that she likes to dress up in a dress and play Jane Eyre and whatever. But like she still loves science and she's still a badass who is not afraid of the Borg at all. And it's like I like that they give her, those layers. And I mean, the writing was always a little inconsistent, but honestly, I do think Janeway actually probably is the most like fully fleshed out and well-rounded and more consistent out of all the characters. I mean, out of necessity because she's the captain, probably. But I think like by and large, I mean, Janeway is just like she's amazing. I just love just how like she's strong and fearless, but still like really real about it. And just Kate Mulgrew, like, oh man, like I mean, she was a soap actress, so she knows how to turn on the waterworks in a very like, in a very like compelling way. Like, I mean, like Janeway, like she will like, I love that she wears her heart on her sleeve too. Like she will like cry in scenes. And like, and it's like, and it doesn't take away anything. I mean, she still has, the aura of authority and like, you still believe, that she's a strong leader, but it's like she can express emotions too. And it doesn't take away from it, adds to that because you see how deeply she cares about her crew and about getting them home safe. And it's just like, I just like, oh, she's my hero and I love her so much. And I'm so glad that we have her. Whatever Voyager's problems, like Captain Janeway, like she is so important to me. And I'm sure a lot of other women. And like, yeah, I will love her forever.
I was surprised it took us so long to get to Jane. Honestly, because I mean, just because of the fact that, like, that seems to be like one of like the big touchstones, like for a lot of the people that I've spoken to that really love Voyager, is like they all talk about like first, female captain, science captain, stuff like that, and so like, I think that is one of the things that like Voyager has that other Treks don't. Janeway is like a big part of like Voyager, like the fandom and the success of Voyager. I will say one thing though, Rachel's point of view on this, because I think it's funny. So there's an episode where they stumble upon Tuvok had created a training program of what if the Maquis mutiny, and it was supposed to be like a training for like the security like officers, but once the things got good, like he never deployed it, but so they stumble upon it. And there's this thing that Chakotay says about like in the program about like we're not going to stop for every anomaly and we're going to just look for ways to go home, and like that was like Rachel's thing, is she's like, why are they stopping to study all this stuff? They should just be making a beeline for home and going as fast as they can. She's like, why does she keep doing this? It's like,
because they're nerds.
I know.
Nerds. They love stellar phenomena. Like that, there would be no episodes if they didn't go poke the space anomaly with a stick every time they encountered one. Like that's literally.
Well, I mean, there could still be the episodes where people attack them for no reason as they're passing through. But yeah,
yeah.
But no, yeah, that's the thing though. Like Rachel's point of view is, it's like because they're in this horrible situation, they need to put the science stuff to the side and just like try to get home.
But realistically, they knew they weren't going to get home in their lifetimes, so they may as well go poke every nebula with a stick, especially because there might be coffee in that nebula.
Exactly.
My issue was more of why didn't they like head towards the Gamma Quadrant for the wormhole that they know is there? Because I'm like,
I thought of that when I was a kid too.
That should be closer than 70 years. Like it might only be 50. Like it might not be that much better. It might be 50 instead of 70, but it's like, you go that way instead, and maybe skirt around Borg space too, I realized they didn't know Borg space was directly ahead of them when they started out, but yeah, that's good thing Kess was able to supercharge them past that, because otherwise. Oh no, everybody! It looks like we had just way too much to talk about with Voyager. I'm as surprised as you are. Of all the Star Trek shows, I would never have called it that this is the one that we just couldn't complete in one episode. But we decided that we had way too much to talk about, and we would reconvene at another time and finish discussing characters, start talking about our favorite plots and storylines. So all of that is coming at you next week, and we'll also have a proper outro. So until then, this is Nathan, signing off. You have been listening to the 42 Cast. Copyright 2026 Vault 42 Media. Got a question for the ultimate answer? Contact us at everything@42cast.com. Theme music is Sharper Swords by Brandon Ellis. Check out more of his work at www.cityfires.com. The 42 Cast is a proud member of the ESO Network.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping for the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.